Chapter 494. Shameless. Shameless? Hearing Longao's words, Feng Wei and Lu Buming suddenly burst into laughter. They did not have the slightest bit of shame or guilt. It was as though to them, being shameless was a given. Longao, you will definitely die today. With that, Feng Wei and Lu Buming attacked at the same time, not giving Longao any chance to escape. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought of leaving. Otherwise, he would have left at the beginning. He needed to train himself through life and death because he always had a feeling that in order to break through to the illusionary divine stage, the 9 reincarnation technique would require him to experience life and death. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. It was because of this that Longao did not leave and fought with the 2 saints. Longao still chose to meet force with force, and fought fiercely with the 2 saints. They exchanged blows, and in less than 2 moves, Longao was once again sent flying. Seeing this, both Feng Wei and Lu Buming were shocked. They did not know if Longao was crazy. He knew that he was no match for the 2 of them, but he still chose to fight head-on. Longao had just been knocked down, but in the blink of an eye, he came back again and chose to attack. Just like this, Longao was beaten down again and again. However, he stood up again and again. His determination told him that if he wanted to break through, he had to persevere. He had to admit that the Saint of Desolation body was very powerful. Even if the 2 saints attacked continuously, they could not break through the defense of the Saint of Desolation body. Kill! Seeing that they couldn't kill Longao even after joining forces, Feng Wei and Lu Buming were a little anxious. Because both of them couldn't figure out why they couldn't kill Longao again and again with their combined strength. If they had not experienced it themselves, they would not have believed it. Longao had been knocked down 10 times, but he still did not choose to give up. However, the difference in their realms was too great. Longao's sacred body of desolation defense alone was not realistic for him to continue resisting. It was precisely because of this that when Feng Wei and Lu Buming joined forces to strike Longao's chest for the 11th time, Longao's entire body was dented and he was sent flying again. This time, Longao did not succeed in standing up. Instead, he quietly fell to the ground. Seeing this situation, both Feng Wei and Lu Buming were overjoyed. They quickly came to Longao's side. As saints, they could clearly sense that Longao had stopped breathing. Tear him to pieces! Suddenly, however, Longao's body disappeared into thin air. That's right, he disappeared into thin air right under the eyes of the 2 saints. The 2 saints widened their eyes in disbelief. They could not understand why Longao would disappear into thin air. What exactly happened? Where is Longao? Shaking his head, Feng Wei looked around. The 2 of them did not dare to be careless, and immediately began to search for Longao's traces. Longao lay quietly on the ground. There was no aura coming from his body, which meant that he had already died. However, Longao's soul was still wandering in his body. 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. 1 revolution is equivalent to ascending the heavens. I have finally broken through the 2nd revolution. Longao did not dare to be careless, and immediately began to cultivate his soul. Longao had taken a huge gamble this time. If he had lost the gamble, his life would have been in danger. However, the result was that Longao had won the gamble. Not only that, his cultivation had broken through to the illusionary divine stage, and he had also broken through to the 2nd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. It would be a lie to say that he was not surprised. After some time, Longao, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. He looked around and his face was filled with surprise and excitement. I have finally broken through to the half-sage stage. All the spiritual energy in Longao's body had been converted into holy energy. However, Longao was not excited about breaking through to the illusionary divine stage. He was excited about the breakthrough of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Longao had always known that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful, especially when Long Fu said that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could defy the heavens and earth. When his master had completed the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, he would be able to step onto the peak of martial arts. Long Fu was looking forward to seeing his master take that step. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was the first revolution of the Yellow Springs. Now that he had broken through to the second revolution, it was the spatial teleportation technique. Longao was extremely surprised to obtain the powerful spatial teleportation technique after breaking through to the second revolution. Let me try. Longao was very clear that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to teleport across a large area. However, teleportation of 1 meter was more than enough. Longao executed the spatial teleportation technique, and his body disappeared into thin air. Immediately after, he appeared 1 meter away. The spatial teleportation technique was very simple. It allowed a person to teleport from one place to another. Putting aside the power of the technique, one could imagine how terrifying the spatial teleportation technique was. The only disadvantage of the spatial teleportation technique was that it could not be used continuously. According to the records of the spatial teleportation technique, one had to have a strong soul to be able to teleport continuously. Therefore, with Longnao's current soul power, he could only teleport once. However, even so, it was still very powerful. Just think about it. Longao was fighting with a martial artist of the same level. If he suddenly used spatial teleportation, he would be fighting in the same place. Suddenly, he would appear 1 meter away and launch a surprise attack. Just think about it, and know what the result would be. Longao was very excited because when he used the spatial teleportation technique, he only felt a spatial fluctuation and his body had already been transferred to another place. If he did not experience it personally, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Longao was very clear that the power of the spatial teleportation technique was far greater than the self-created sorrow of heaven and earth. Longao was looking forward to the remaining realms of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. If he could obtain more of such techniques, he would be able to improve quickly. However, in any case this time, he had fought against 2 saints by himself. Not only did he not die, but his cultivation had also broken through and he had obtained the spatial teleportation technique. His cultivation had officially broken through to the half-step saint realm. Longao felt that his strength had instantly increased by 10 times. A peak world emperor was indeed incomparable to a beginner half-step saint. The two were not on the same level at all. Longao tried to use the divine dragon's arm. As expected, the breakthrough in his cultivation had more than doubled the power of the divine dragon's arm. In other words, if Longao encountered a half-step saint martial artist at this moment, he could easily obliterate the half-step saint martial artist. As for a saint, he was still unable to contend against them. The gap between a half-step saint and a saint was too big. Longao was very clear in his heart that unless his cultivation could break through to the peak of the half-step saint realm, he would be able to fight against a saint. P.S. The next chapter will officially break through 1 million words. I hope that everyone will tip 1 yuan to congratulate War God Longao for breaking through 1 million words. This way, Xiaojiu will also have face. Chapter 495. What the hell? Longao is clearly dead. Why did he suddenly disappear? After searching for an entire day and night, they still could not find any trace of Longao. Both Fenghui and Lu Buming's faces were extremely gloomy. It seems like Longao is already dead. There is no need for us to continue searching. Let's go. Just as Lu Buming finished speaking, a terrifying sword radiance came slashing towards them, giving them a shock. Regardless of their carelessness, the both of them dodged sideways. However, the cracks in the space around them seemed to be able to swallow everything. If it was a normal half-sage, they would have been swallowed by the cracks in the space around them. However, Fenghui and Lu Buming were both sages and managed to dodge the cracks. How have the both of you been? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of them, the both of them were shocked. They did not expect the dead Longao to come back to life and stand in front of them. Longao, I have to admit that you are very lucky to not die. Humph, I have always been very lucky. Longao despised the both of them. They had agreed on 10 moves, but the both of them had plotted against him. Otherwise, he would have won. Eh? At this point in time, the both of them exclaimed as though they were not sure. You have already broken through to the illusionary divine stage. Thank you. This is all thanks to the both of you. Although they did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of them. The both of them were completely stunned. They could not understand how Longao was able to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Such talent and potential was too scary. If he was given more time, wouldn't he be able to catch up with them? The more talented Longao was, the more talented he was, the more intense the killing intent of the two was. If one did not remove the roots, they would grow again. Longao, don't think that you can fight us just because you are a half-sage. No matter what happens today, you must die. Ha ha. Hearing this, Longao looked up to the sky and laughed. He did not continue to talk nonsense. Longao's body instantly dashed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of the world had already pressed down fiercely. Longao's intention was very simple. He wanted to use his world aura to suppress the Saint Chi auras of his two opponents. Otherwise, forget about fighting, just the Saint Chi auras released by his opponents would be enough to overwhelm him. The two of them did not expect that Longao would choose to take the initiative to attack. This time, the two of them did not fight alone. In order to end the battle quickly, the two of them worked together to kill Longao. In the blink of an eye, the two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle. This time, Longao chose to fight 1 against 2, and it was a head-on battle. He wanted to see how strong he was and how big the gap was between him and a saint. As the saying goes, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. This time, Longao also wanted to end the battle quickly. As soon as the battle started, he immediately used his self-created martial skills, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth and Devour Blood. Under the double attack, even if the two of them worked together, they would not dare to resist. And at this time, Longao once again used teleportation. His body appeared behind the two of them without any sound. Like a ghost, he lightly patted with his palm. The power seemed ordinary, but in reality, it was very powerful. The two of them were shocked. They did not know what had happened, but the perception of a saint was extremely strong. In an instant, they sensed the terrifying aura behind them. There was no need to look back at all. They had already punched out fiercely. Longao did not choose to continue to fight head-on. He endured the waves of weakness in his mind and used teleportation twice in a row. He directly teleported 2 meters away and left. Fengwei, Lu Bumming, I will slowly settle this score with the Ethereal Palace. You should pray. Ha ha ha, I will come back for you. As the voice gradually disappeared, Longao's figure had already disappeared without a trace. The two of them did not chase after him. This was because Fengwei and Lu Bumming were already stunned. They stood there dumbfounded and no one knew what was going on in their minds. How did Longao do it? Teleportation. It seems like only the talent of a Long family can do such a thing. No matter what, this matter cannot be spread out. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. The two of them were not fools. Of course, they knew that if the news of them killing Longao spread out, the Ethereal Palace would be laughed at. No matter what, this was not a glorious matter. No matter what happens, we must kill this person. Now, let's go and contact the Level 3 Long family and Serene Hell Mansion. We will tell them about this matter. Whether they are willing to join forces or not, it will depend on them. Now that Longao had come back from the dead and had officially broken through to the illusionary divine stage, the two of them were even more fearful of him. They could not wait to kill Longao and get rid of all future troubles. On top of a huge rock, Longao sat cross-legged and quietly recuperated his soul. After this battle with the two sages, Longao was still a little depressed. Although he had broken through to the Sage-to-be realm, the difference between him and a sage was still too big. Teleportation. Longao's body suddenly disappeared, and in the next second, he appeared 1 meter away. Longao was very satisfied with the power of teleportation. He stood up and stretched his back. In the 8 realms of the illusionary divine stage, from the lowest to the highest, they were half-sage, sage, earth sage, sky sage, sage king, sage emperor, sage venerable, and sage emperor. Longao was well aware that he had just broken through to the illusionary divine stage, and was considered to be at the lowest level of the illusionary divine stage. Let's not talk about sage kings, sage reverends, and other powerful beings. Even a sage would not be his match. There were 4 levels of sage to be martial artists: beginner sage to be, intermediate sage to be, advanced sage to be, and peak sage to be. Longao did not continue to stay in the spirit domain of the 9 continents, and rushed back to his family. Along the way, he had already spread the news and was 1 step ahead of the ethereal palace. Longao's meaning was very simple. This time, Fenghui and Lu Bumming intercepted him halfway, which was considered as violating the 1-year agreement. If the ethereal palace spread the news first, he would be in a very passive position at that time. He was afraid that he would be put on the spot. The news that Longao had spread across the 9 continents and 2 domains. Those who heard the news all scolded the ethereal palace for being a jerk. As one of the 4 major forces, they had broken the 1-year agreement with Longao. Based on this alone, the ethereal palace had become despicable. Since the ethereal palace had become despicable, Longao had become a gentleman. Because of this, there were people scolding the ethereal palace and praising Longao, causing the ethereal palace to be extremely depressed. P.S. I apologize in advance. The plot was stuck this afternoon. I thought about it for the entire afternoon, and sat in front of the computer in a daze. Now that everything has cleared up, I will do my best to update the plot. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 496. Longao Peak. Underground, in a deep cave. Senior Prince, I beg you to spare me, I can follow you. The divine soul knelt down and begged for mercy, his body trembling slightly like a mouse seeing a cat. It turned out that the divine soul was not a divine realm martial artist, but a void god martial artist with the lowest strength among the divine realm martial artists. It was just that the divine soul wanted Longao to take him away, so he made up a lie. The prince was a real divine realm martial artist. When the prince was ambushed by the enemy and died on Longao Peak, he was afraid of being found by the enemy, so he had no choice but to seal his divine soul. The prince had been recovering from the damage to his divine soul, but it was easier said than done. Because of this, the prince sensed the existence of the divine soul and directly chose to devour it. If it was not for some reason, the divine soul would have been devoured and refined by now. You are a divine realm martial artist of the Wanshou sect? Yes, senior. When I was driven out of the Wanshou sect and accidentally died, I had no choice but to seal myself. Why don't you enter reincarnation? Once a martial artist broke through to the divine realm, even if they died, their divine soul could enter reincarnation and have a great chance of being reborn, but the cultivation would have to start from scratch. Senior Prince, I believe you should know that once our divine soul enters reincarnation, 90% of it will disappear. Even if we are lucky enough to enter reincarnation, the cultivation will have to start from scratch. The prince instantly understood the divine soul's meaning, nodded, and said, If I devour you, I don't know what the effect will be. Hearing this, the divine soul was so scared that his body trembled violently. He kowtowed and begged for mercy. In front of a divine realm martial artist, the divine soul had no power to resist. After all, void god and divine realm martial artists were not on the same level. It was like a child standing in front of an adult. How could he resist? But I changed my mind. Hearing this, the divine soul was not happy at all, but his heart thumped because he did not know what the divine prince in front of him wanted. The divine soul did not dare to ask or speak. Someone is coming. Longao, who had just returned to Longao Peak, immediately released his aura in an attempt to sense the existence of this mysterious Supreme Tao expert. Longao was not a fool. He knew very well in his heart that if this divine realm martial artist was really hostile to him, or his family, he would have already made his move. According to the strength of the divine realm martial artist, if he wanted to destroy himself and his family, it was simply a simple matter. But no matter how Longao sensed, he was unable to sense any divine Tao aura from start to finish. Longao was very clear that the reason why he was unable to sense the existence of the divine Tao aura was mainly because his strength was too low. The half-saint realm was even less than an ant in front of a celestial god. "Little friend, since you're here, please come down," a voice resounded in Longao's mind. Before he could figure out what was going on, he found that his body had been enveloped by a divine Tao aura. In the next second, Longao appeared in a deep and serene cave. There were only 2 divine souls in the entire cave. Of course, he knew one of them. It was the divine soul Shang Gongyuan that he had brought out of the imperial city's Soul Break Valley and had almost devoured Kwang Ao's soul. He was also the divine path warrior of the Wanshou sect. "You're the master of the dragon sect, Longao?" Longao was not surprised that the divine soul in front of him knew him. In any case, he and his family had only moved to Longao Peak later. He believed that the divine soul in front of him had already existed for a long time. "You can call me Prince. I believe you should know this one." Longao nodded and said, "Senior Prince, I didn't know you were at Longao Peak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have moved here. But since this is Senior's territory, I will lead my family away from Longao Peak later." "Longao Peak? That's a very good name. Longao, I've been quite lonely here for so many years. It's good to have you and your family as company. You don't have to move away." Hearing this, Longao was overjoyed. At this moment, he was completely sure that the divine soul in front of him had no malice towards him and his family. If that was the case, it might not be a bad thing. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew what a divine soul represented. Once he became friends with the divine soul, even if the 4 great forces attacked him in the future, he would not have to fear them. Glancing at Shang Gongyuan not far away, Longao felt contempt in his heart. Shang Gongyuan had obviously deceived him. He didn't want to pass on his divine soul to others, but wanted him to bring him out. "Longao, please sit." "Thank you, Senior Prince." Longao didn't stand on ceremony. He found a boulder and sat down. Without any hesitation, he got straight to the point and said, "Thank you, Senior. Otherwise, my good brother would have been killed by this person. There's no need to be polite. Although I don't oppose divine souls possessing a body and being reborn, what Shang Gongyuan did was indeed a little unkind. Shang Gongyuan, tell me, how will you explain this?" Hearing the prince's words, Shang Gongyuan cursed in his heart. But because of the prince's strength, he could only obediently comply. Otherwise, there was only one fate for him, and that was to be devoured by the divine soul. "Senior Prince, after sealing myself for so many years, I admit that I really want to seize a divine soul and be reborn. As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Since Longao believed me, he can only blame himself for being stupid and not me. I wonder if Senior Prince is willing to admit this?" "I admit it." Without waiting for the prince to speak, Longao had already taken the lead and said, "I don't deny that the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. I also admit that I chose to believe you and I deserve to be deceived. But Shang Gongyuan, you have to remember one thing. You shouldn't have devoured my brother's soul. So, I will settle this debt with you. No matter what, you have to give me an explanation." "Give you an explanation?" Shang Gongyuan sneered. In his opinion, a puny world emperor wasn't even worth a fart in his eyes. If he wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Ridicule, disdain, contempt, all sorts of expressions appeared. Shang Gongyuan smiled and said, "If Senior Prince wasn't here to support you, I'd like to ask you, would you still dare to speak to me like this? In the end, you're just a piece of trash." Provocation. Shang Gongyuan wasn't an idiot. Of course, he knew that if the prince stood on Longao's side, then he would be in trouble. So, he could only use provocation to make the prince care about his face and not act against him. Whether it was the prince or Longao, they naturally knew what Shang Gongyuan meant. Because of this, the two of them looked down on Shang Gongyuan in their hearts. P.S. Congratulations to the prince and Shang Gongyuan for becoming the number 1 and number 2 on the fan list. Lil 90,000 thanks. Chapter 497. Shang Gongyuan, what do you want? Longao knew that Shang Gongyuan was not afraid of him, but of the God of Heaven Prince in front of him. The God of Heaven Prince smiled and did not speak. Shang Gongyuan looked at him with disdain and said, Longao, if you have the guts, fight me fairly. If you win, you can do whatever you want to me. If you lose, you can kill yourself immediately. How about that? Hearing what Shang Gongyuan said, not only did Longao laugh, but the God of Heaven Prince also laughed. A fair fight? A supreme Tao warrior wanted to have a fair fight with a sage-to-be warrior. Could such a fight be considered a fair fight? Longao, you don't dare? Longao laughed and suddenly said, I have seen many shameless people. You are the most shameless. Shang Gongyuan, you are a disgrace to the Wanshou sect. The Wanshou sect was obviously Shang Gongyuan's weak spot. When he heard Longao mention the Wanshou sect, his face instantly became furious. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the divine soul beside him, Shang Gongyuan believed that at this moment, he would have already attacked. Shang Gongyuan. What orders does Senior Prince have? Shang Gongyuan was afraid of the God of Heaven. He was afraid that the God of Heaven would devour his soul. If that was the case, he would not even have the chance to reincarnate. I will not say much about the fair fight you mentioned just now. I know that you are not convinced. How about this? I will arrange a fair fight for the both of you. How about that? F*CKU. Shang Gongyuan cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to show his dissatisfaction. He nodded and said with a smile, I believe in Senior Prince. Shang Gongyuan was a cunning old fox. He used words to stop the God of Heaven from siding with Longao. This way, he would not have to be afraid of anything. The divine Tao was the most powerful existence in the world. Even empty god martial artists were not comparable to illusionary divine martial artists. The difference between the illusionary divine stage and the divine Tao stage was like heaven and earth. The difference between the two was too great, and they were not even on the same level. It was because of this that Shang Gongyuan was confident. No matter what, he was not afraid of Longao. Longao, do you have a problem? No. Longao didn't even think about it and directly agreed. He didn't know why, but he always had a feeling that the prince in front of him had an indescribable feeling for him. This feeling couldn't be expressed with words. Shang Gongyuan, I am very fair. Now I will forcibly suppress your spirit realm to the half-saint realm. In this way, the battle between you two can be called fair. What do you think? Shang Gongyuan was startled. His cultivation had been forcibly suppressed to the semi-sage realm. So, it would be a lie if he said that he wasn't worried. However, Shang Gongyuan clearly knew that he didn't have any other choice since the matter had already reached this point. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to regret once the prince started a massacre and devoured his spirit. Thinking of this, Shang Gongyuan nodded and agreed. I have no problem. Let's see if Longao dares to accept the challenge. In fact, Shang Gongyuan was still very confident in his heart. This was because he believed that even if his cultivation was forcefully suppressed, it was still impossible for his opponent to be his match. After all, when two martial artists of the same level fought, they relied on actual combat experience and other factors. Senior, I have no problem with that either. Well, in that case, let's begin. As soon as the prince finished speaking, Shang Gongyuan felt his spirit tremble. Then, his cultivation rapidly dropped. In the blink of an eye, it had dropped to the so-called half-saint realm. In this way, Shang Gongyuan had also become a half-saint spirit. Heaving a sigh of relief, Longao increasingly felt that the prince seemed to be taking care of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed Shang Gongyuan's spirit realm. In any case, if other people were to choose between himself and a spirit of the divine path, everyone would 100% choose him. Longao, wait a moment. I will let you know what is called disparity and what is called trash. Go to hell. Longao simply didn't want to talk nonsense with the prince. He rushed out like an arrow. In order to end the battle quickly, Longao directly used his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of the Heavens and Earth, and integrated the imposing aura of the heavens and earth. There was no tornado this time. Longao knew very well that the best way to defeat a spirit was to use a soul attack. However, if he used a soul attack at the beginning, there was an 80% chance of success. It was because of this that Longao chose to advance in order to retreat. The imposing aura of the heavens and earth, you are nirvana. Before Shang Gongyuan finished speaking, the imposing aura of the heavens and earth released by Longao directly enveloped him. At this time, an illusory dragon shadow appeared behind Longao. Then, a dragon's roar resounded throughout the cave. Innate remarkable ability, Dragon's Roar. Seeing Longao use his innate remarkable ability, the prince seemed to be a little excited. His body began to tremble because of excitement. His face was full of surprise. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he restrained himself. Innate remarkable ability? Impossible, this is impossible! Shang Gongyuan roared. As a supreme Tao warrior, of course, Shang Gongyuan knew what Longao released. Innate remarkable ability, the most powerful innate martial technique of the Long family. However, in order to awaken the innate remarkable ability, one must go to the Long family ancestral hall. As everyone knew, in order to enter the Long family ancestral hall for baptism, one must be at least level 3. Strictly speaking, only level 2 or level 1 Long family disciples could do it. As for level 6 Long family disciples, they didn't even need to think about it. In that case, how could Longao release his innate remarkable ability? What in the world was going on? Could it be that his eyes were playing tricks on him? Before Shang Gongyuan could recover from his shock, he was shocked to find that his body was actually locked. Moreover, the flow of time around him began to reverse, causing Shang Gongyuan to almost collapse. Kill. Of course, Longao would not let go of this rare opportunity. If Shang Gongyuan's original strength was at its peak, Longao would definitely not be his opponent. However, the situation now was completely different. Shang Gongyuan's realm had been forcefully suppressed by the prince. Therefore, Longao had full confidence that he could completely disregard anyone of the same level as him. However, at this moment, the prince's voice suddenly sounded in Longao's mind. The meaning was simple. Don't kill Shang Gongyuan, just teach him a lesson. Although Longao did not know what the prince meant, he still chose to agree. No matter what, the prince had saved Kwangao. Moreover, if the prince had not sided with him, he would not have been able to defeat Shang Gongyuan. He would not have had the slightest chance. This was the difference between an illusionary divine stage martial artist and a supreme Tao warrior. Although he couldn't kill, he could still get lucky. With a chuckle, Longao directly used the mystical dragon arm and started to punch Shang Gongyuan. He used all his strength, and did not hold back. Chapter 498. Longao's divine dragon arm merged with the aura of heaven and earth. He didn't hold back at all. His fists were as fast as lightning. In just a few seconds he had already punched hundreds of times, causing Shang Gongyuan to scream in pain. Enough. Longao wasn't willing to stop, but since the senior prince had said so, he didn't continue and retreated reluctantly. If Shang Gongyuan was in the divine path realm, Longao wouldn't have taken action. He knew his limits. However, Shang Gongyuan's current situation was completely different. His realm was suppressed by the senior prince. He wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. Longao, I'm going to kill you! If it wasn't for the senior prince, I would have killed you right now. Hearing the cold voice, Shang Gongyuan didn't know why he shivered. He wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. Shang Gongyuan, the winner takes all. Since you've already lost, you have to admit it. I know. He wasn't convinced at all. In Shang Gongyuan's opinion, if he wasn't suppressed by the senior prince, would a puny Longao be his opponent? However, the senior prince was obviously siding with Longao. Shang Gongyuan wasn't a fool. How could he not see it? He had to suffer in silence, unable to voice out his bitterness. He could only curse in his heart. Shang Gongyuan, I'll settle this later. Go and rest first. Then, regardless of whether Shang Gongyuan was willing or not, an aura shot out from the senior prince and shrouded Shang Gongyuan. Just like that, Shang Gongyuan disappeared into thin air. Old ancestor. You've already guessed it? The senior prince was surprised because he didn't expect the young man in front of him to have already guessed his identity. After all, he didn't have time to announce his identity. Nodding, Longao said helplessly, I can clearly sense that we have a bloodline connection. Moreover, old ancestor is obviously siding with me this time. Otherwise, I would have been killed by Shang Gongyuan. Ha ha ha, good, good, good. After saying the word good 3 times, the senior prince's face was full of praise. That's right, I'm Long Batian. As expected. Although Longao had already guessed the prince's true identity, he could not help but feel shocked. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor had already fallen, and his big brother had obtained the old ancestor's legacy. But now, not only was the old ancestor standing in front of him alive, he was also a heavenly god. What was going on? Ancestor, to be honest, not long ago, grandfather gave the succession of the martial monarch to my brother. Why are you here? Longao couldn't figure it out, but Long Batian nodded with a smile and said, The inheritance of the great emperor in the family isn't my inheritance. It's just that I killed an enemy and forcefully stripped his inheritance. Hearing the old ancestor's words, Longao swallowed his saliva fiercely. It was too ruthless. It could actually strip away the inheritance of a great sovereign expert. He believed that even a supreme Tao expert might not be able to do this. The inheritance was very simple. Unless one was willing to do so, it was impossible to forcefully take it away. No matter what, I'm glad that you didn't inherit the martial monarch's legacy. Or you're the disciple with the most potential in our Long family. No matter what, you have to break through to the Supreme Tao realm. Supreme Tao realm? Could it be the heavenly god realm? Long Batian did not continue to speak, and Longao did not continue to ask, because he knew very well in his heart that if the old ancestor wanted to say, there was no need for him to ask. But if he did not want to say, the old ancestor would not say it no matter what. Tell me about the current situation of the family. Longao was full of respect for the old ancestor before him. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor Long Batian was a peerless genius that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Long family was jealous of him because of his brilliance, which eventually led to the death of the old ancestor. Longao didn't hide anything from the old ancestor. He told him about the current situation of the family in detail. After listening, Long Batian seemed to be very satisfied. He wasn't worried at all and said, Go ahead and do it. Although I can't leave this mountain, I can guarantee the safety of the family. You're only a sage-to-be now. So there's only one thing that you have to do now, and that is to increase your strength as soon as possible. Before Longao could finish his words, Long Batian continued. The great thousand world is full of powerful people. What you see now is only the tip of the iceberg. So you have to increase your strength as soon as possible and develop the power of the family. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what the old ancestor was talking about. The world was full of powerful people. The illusionary divine realm, the great emperor realm, the supreme Tao realm. Longao knew that he still had a long way to go. Old ancestor, I will definitely do it. Alright, I believe you. I didn't let you kill Shang Gongyuan just now because I was prepared to take away his supreme Tao inheritance and pass it on. However, I won't give Shang Gongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance to that friend of yours. Longao had already guessed this point. This was because the old ancestor valued the family more than him. He would rather find an unsuitable disciple to inherit the supreme Tao inheritance than give it to an outsider. Longao knew that he believed in domineering arrogance because he saw domineering arrogance as a brother. However, others didn't think so, especially the old ancestor. Longao knew clearly about the old ancestor's worries. Once domineering arrogance accepted the inheritance and became a supreme Tao expert, wouldn't the family suffer a double loss if domineering arrogance were to leave the family? It was because of this that Longao didn't blame the old ancestor. He knew that no matter who it was, they would do the same. It was understandable that they would do it for the family. Old ancestor, who are you going to give the supreme Tao inheritance to? We'll talk about this later. First, I need to take away Shan Gongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance. It seems simple, but it's actually very difficult. It will take at least a few months and at most a few years. Longao nodded. Although he didn't know how difficult it would be to take away the inheritance, he could totally imagine it. At this time, Long Batian suddenly said, Aoer, I will now pass the inheritance to you. Remember, if you want the family to develop thoroughly, you must first increase the strength of everyone in the family. Taking away the inheritance, Longao never thought that the old ancestor would pass the inheritance to him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't surprised. After all, after cultivating the inheritance, other than refining soul slaves and corpse slaves, he could also take away the inheritance by force. At this speed, the family would develop very quickly. At that time, they could also prepare to move in with the Long family. P.S. Congratulations to Shan Gongyuan for becoming a Hall Master. This is also the first Hall Master in this book. I hope there will be the first Protector, Elder, Sect Master, and Master. Little Nine is looking forward to the birth of the first Alliance Master. At that time, I will give you my chrysanthemum. Hee hee. Chapter 499. Next, Longao devoted himself to cultivating the skill of stripping inheritance. After an unknown period of time. Shan Gongyuan, do you know the relationship between me and Longao? Shaking his head, Shan Gongyuan answered curiously. I don't know. Please enlighten me. I'm from the Long family. Long Batian did not continue, but Shan Gongyuan was not a fool. Of course, he understood what he meant. Before Shan Gongyuan could recover from his shock, his soul was devoured. Long Batian was an heavenly god while Shan Gongyuan was only an empty god. The difference between the two was too great. Aoer, don't tell anyone about me. Do you understand? Understood. Of course, Longao knew what the old ancestor meant. He turned and left the cave, returning to his family. Only then did the Long family know that Longao had returned. Longao did not tell anyone about the old ancestor. He only chatted with his grandfather, parents, and Aoshue. He did not even mention anything about the ethereal palace. Fenghui and Lu Buming returned to the ethereal palace and immediately joined forces with the level 3 Long family and Nether Mansion to fight against the dragon sect. But what made the ethereal palace furious was that no matter how hard they tried, the two forces would not agree to it. The reason was simple. This was the grudge between the ethereal palace and the dragon sect. It had nothing to do with them. The Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were not fools. Since the ethereal palace was so anxious, something must have happened. If the ethereal palace was determined to fight against the dragon sect, even if they did not join forces, they believed that the ethereal palace would do the same. If that was the case, why should they look for trouble? The ethereal palace knew what the Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were thinking, but there was nothing they could do. Just by themselves? If there were no other three forces, the ethereal palace would not be afraid of the dragon sect. Even if there were 10 or 100 dragon sects, the ethereal palace would not be afraid. But the situation was completely different now. Once the ethereal palace took action against the dragon sect, not to mention that both sides would suffer losses, the ethereal palace's attention would be diverted by the dragon sect. By then, they would be in big trouble. The Ethereal Palace knew very well that the Nether Mansion and the Level 3 Longao couldn't wait for the Ethereal Palace and the Dragon Sect to fight to the death. When the time came, they would be able to reap the benefits. In the end, the Ethereal Palace also chose to endure. The Ethereal Palace did not make a move, but the Dragon Sect did. The Snake Emperor led an army of corpse slaves and began a crusade against the 9 states. Those who did not submit were directly destroyed. They were vicious and merciless, and the battle ended quickly. The 9 states were the Sky State, the Earth State, the Sun State, the Moon State, the Sunset State, the Cloud State, the Crimson State, the Illusion State, and the Black Forest State. With Tianzhou as the center, the Dragon Sect spread out. Their first target was Yunzhou. No matter what, the number 1 sect in Yunzhou, the so-called Yunzhou sect, had been destroyed by the Dragon Sect. Compared to the other 7 states, Yunzhou was much easier to deal with. Longao gave all the power to the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor seemed to want to prove to others, especially the Ethereal Palace, that had abandoned him. He wanted to let the Ethereal Palace know that their decision back then was wrong. As for the Snake Emperor's intention, how could Longao not know? It was also because of this that he gave the power to the Snake Emperor alone. He wanted to stimulate the Snake Emperor's fighting spirit and speed up the pace of conquering the 9 states. There were countless forces in the 9 states. It was not an easy task to conquer them one by one. The Snake Emperor also recognized this point, so he made an example of them. One had to admit that the method of making an example of them was very effective. As long as the Snake Emperor led the corpse slave army to destroy a force, the surrounding forces would definitely be frightened. In addition to the Snake Emperor's coercion, the Cloud State and the Crimson State were conquered in just a month. When the news reached the Dragon Sect, everyone in the Dragon Sect was extremely excited. However, at this time, the Ethereal Palace's forces suddenly intervened. They did not directly clash with the Snake Emperor and occupied the other states. Longao was already prepared for the Ethereal Palace's sudden intervention. This was because Fenghui and Lu Buming did not succeed in killing him this time. He believed that the Ethereal Palace would definitely not let it go. At the very least, they would have to regain their face. Otherwise, where would the Ethereal Palace's face go? According to the Snake Emperor, since the Ethereal Palace dared to intervene in this matter, they would definitely not let it go. Not to mention the problem of face. Once the Ethereal Palace occupied a few states, it would be extremely difficult for the Dragon Sect to take them back in the future. However, at this time, Longao urgently called the Snake Emperor back to the sect, which made the Snake Emperor very unhappy. However, no matter what, the master of the Dragon Sect was Longao and not him. No matter how great his power was, it could not be greater than Longao's. It was because of this that the Snake Emperor had no choice but to bring the corpse slave army back to the sect. The Snake Emperor, who had just returned to the sect, had already received the news that the master had withdrawn from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. The Snake Emperor was furious. He could not understand why the master would withdraw his forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. He was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. Dragon Sect Main Hall? Master, I have something to ask you. Why did you withdraw your forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State? The Snake Emperor's attitude was extremely bad, which made the surrounding people furious. Ouyang Fei said angrily, Snake Emperor, don't go too far. You are only an elder of the sect, not the master of the sect. The master does not need to go through you for anything. The Snake Emperor also knew that his attitude just now was a little too much. No matter what, Longao was still the master. There was a huge difference in status between the two. Just as Ouyang Fei said, the master did not need to go through him for any decision. However, the Snake Emperor was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. He believed that no matter who it was, they would not be able to accept this fact, let alone him. Longao smiled, waved his hand and said, Elder Snake, please take a seat. Taking a deep breath, the Snake Emperor bowed respectfully and said, I was reckless just now. Master, I really don't understand why the Cloud State and the Crimson State that we have fought so hard for have to be withdrawn. Longao stopped Ouyang Fei, who was about to speak again, and said with a smile, "The reason is very simple. I don't want to go head-to-head with the Ethereal Palace." The reason why Longao was not angry was that he knew very well that the Snake Emperor was doing this for the good of the sect. Otherwise, he would have already lost his temper with the Snake Emperor's attitude just now. As the master of a sect, he must do what he should do and resolutely not do what he should not do. Only in this way could he make everyone in the sect obey him. It could be said that Longao was the soul of the dragon sect. Usually, they could not feel it. Once something happened to Longao, the dragon sect would not be able to hold on. Elder Snake, I don't need to say more about the strength of the Ethereal Palace. I believe that you know it 10,000 times better than all of us. I want to ask, if we go head-to-head, even if we have the corpse slave army, can we go against the Ethereal Palace? Chapter 500. As the former palace master of the Ethereal Palace, no one knew the situation of the Ethereal Palace better than the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor knew very well that any one of the four major forces was not incompetent. Otherwise, the four major forces would not have been able to dominate the 9 states' spirit domain. The Snake Emperor's expression was very ugly. No matter what, he was unwilling to accept it. Apart from being unwilling, it was more that he had lost the opportunity to witness himself. Back then, the Ethereal Palace had chased him out. He would never forget it for the rest of his life. Therefore, the Snake Emperor wanted to tell the Ethereal Palace that they would regret losing him. Longao knew clearly what the Snake Emperor meant. However, for the sake of the big picture, he could not only care about one person. Elder Snake, with our current strength, there is no need to go head-on with the Ethereal Palace. When we find the right opportunity, we can just stomp them back. There is no need to be so quick. He was startled. Hearing the master's words, the Snake Emperor understood what he meant. Master, I was wrong. Waving his hand, Longao smiled and said, There is no need to take responsibility. The sect will help you with the grudge between you and the Ethereal Palace. After hearing Longao's words, it would be a lie to say that he was not moved. Especially when the dragon sect was compared to the Ethereal Palace. The difference was like heaven and earth. Master, what should we do next? The Ethereal Palace had already shown their attitude by interfering in the 9 states. Just as the master said, if they chose to go head-on, the sect would not be able to gain the slightest advantage. Everyone looked at Longao. After all, this was not a small matter. Losing the 9 states was a small matter, but implicating the sect was a big matter. Longao had already thought about the matter of the Ethereal Palace interfering in the 9 states. After coughing twice, Longao said, Since the Ethereal Palace wants the 9 states so much, then we will fulfill their wish. From now on, the sect will not allow anyone to interfere in the 9 states. Longao had almost guessed the Ethereal Palace's intention. With the lessons learned from the previous few times, it was believed that the Ethereal Palace would not dare to come to the sect. Since that was the case, the Ethereal Palace only had one way, and that was to intervene in the 9 provinces. Without giving anyone a chance to speak, Longao had already stood up and left, leaving everyone behind. You look at me, I look at you, you have no idea what the sect master meant. Ao, what are you going to do? Longao was preparing to leave Tianzhou, so before he left, he returned to his family. However, he only told his grandfather Long Haoyan about this. As for the others, he didn't even tell his parents. He was afraid that his parents, Aoxue, and the others would be worried. Longao didn't hide anything from his grandfather. Grandpa, previously, Feng Wei and Lu Buming violated the agreement and tried to kill me halfway. This time, they interfered in the affairs of the 9 prefectures. If I were to sit and wait for my death, the Ethereal Palace would think that I'm afraid of them. The Ethereal Palace is one of the 4 major forces. Its foundation and strength are there. If you act rashly this time, what if? Although Longao didn't finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. No matter what, there were saints in the ethereal palace. If his grandson went there openly, would it be easy to fight? However, Longao was full of confidence. He said confidently, "Grandpa, don't worry. I won't act rashly. Since I can't do it openly, I'll do it secretly." Longao was also an old fox. He instantly understood his grandson's meaning. Longao was very confident in his grandson. With Longao's current strength as a half-saint, if he chose to assassinate, he believed that even the saints of the ethereal palace couldn't do anything to Longao. Of course, Longao knew that Longao had the spatial teleportation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed so easily. Spatial teleportation. Until now, Longao still couldn't believe that Aor had the spatial teleportation. In this world, there was actually such a heaven-defying martial skill. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. "Grandpa, the ethereal palace won't let me leave this time. If nothing goes wrong, the ethereal palace will definitely come to assassinate the people of the family and the sect. So, Grandpa, you must keep an eye on everyone and forbid anyone from leaving." Longao wasn't very worried about the safety of the family, as long as the disciples of the family didn't leave the Longao Peak. For the sake of safety, Longao invited the Fire Kylan from the family to the Dragon Sect. In any case, the old ancestor Longao was at the foot of the Longao Peak. Unless the ethereal palace directly sent out divine realm experts, who else could be the old ancestor's opponent? "I understand." From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't tell his grandpa about the old ancestor's matter, including anyone else. After settling everything, Longao immediately got up and left. With the help of the teleportation formation, he quietly entered the Nine States spirit domain. If it was in the past when the Dragon Sect didn't have the teleportation formation, it would be too difficult for Longao to do this. However, the situation now was completely different. After entering the Nine States spirit domain, Longao didn't return to the city of Sin. Instead, he went straight to the north. There were 4 major forces in the Nine States spirit domain. They were the East Royal City, the Long family in the west, the Netherhell Mansion in the south, and the Ethereal Palace in the north. The main reason Longao entered the Nine States spirit domain this time was the Ethereal Palace. This time, Fenghui and Lu Bumming violated the 1-year agreement, which made Longao furious. He didn't care about anything else and was prepared to assassinate the disciples of the Ethereal Palace. It would be great to kill one, or even a couple. In this way, Longao began to assassinate. With his current strength, unless it was a saint, even a half-saint warrior couldn't escape from Longao's assassination. Yin Baishun, a half-saint warrior of the Ethereal Palace, was considered the most powerful elder in the outer sect. He usually lived in the Ethereal City and helped the Ethereal Palace to manage all the affairs of the outer sect. As soon as Longao stepped into the Ethereal City, he directly targeted the most powerful elder in the Ethereal City. Longao knew very well that if he wanted the Ethereal Palace to suffer, he had to assassinate powerful elders and talented disciples. Otherwise, assassinating ordinary disciples would be useless. Because of this, Longao directly targeted the most powerful elder in the Ethereal City, Yin Baishun. As the largest city of the Ethereal Palace, the Ethereal City was extremely prosperous. After entering the city, Longao didn't immediately take action because he disguised himself a little this time. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize him at all. Longao didn't want to alert the enemy immediately. After all, there were many experts in the Ethereal Palace. Once he was discovered, not to mention continuing the assassination, it would be a problem whether he could leave the Ethereal City safely. Because of this, Longao prepared to do it quietly. After entering the Ethereal City, Longao began to observe Yin Baishun's comings and goings. After asking around, he almost grasped the general idea of Yin Baishun. In other words, Longao was full of confidence. P.S. Congratulations to the first Guardian Noble Shamate for becoming a Guardian. Little Nine's chrysanthemum is yours. Chapter 501. According to Longao's information, this elder of Ethereal Palace would almost never leave Ethereal City. And one of Yin Baishuan's favorite places was Glory Tea House. Under normal circumstances, Yin Baishuan would arrive punctually at dusk every day. Longao arrived at Glory Tea House in advance. The moment he sat down and asked for a cup of tea, he called for the waiter. "I'll book this place today." "No." The waiter rejected him without even thinking and turned to leave. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even look at Longao. How was he like a waiter? He was clearly a boss. If it were any other waiter, he would definitely do anything for money. But Glory Tea House was different. Longao wasn't surprised at all because he had already thought of the reason. Without a doubt, the reason why Glory Tea House was so awesome and even a waiter was acting like a boss was because of Yin Baishuan's daily patronage. As an elder of Ethereal Palace, Yin Baishuan's status was needless to say. Coupled with his strength, it could be said that Yin Baishuan was the local tyrant of Ethereal City. About an hour later, an old man walked in slowly. When Longao saw this person, he immediately perked up. Even though the old man didn't look like much, Longao could clearly sense the powerful aura emanating from the old man. "Elder Yin, you're here. Take a seat." Waving his hand, Yin Baishuan didn't sit down. Instead, he looked over at Longao. Just as Longao was feeling surprised, Yin Baishuan was already standing in front of him. "Give me a good pot of Longjing tea. Please wait a moment. I'll be right there." Yin Baishuan sat down and looked at the young man before him. Suddenly, he asked, "Dragon Sect Master Longao?" He was already shocked to the extreme. Putting aside the fact that he had already disguised himself, he hadn't even seen Yin Baishuan before, let alone know him. It was because of this that Longao couldn't figure out how the old man could recognize him at a glance. Now that things had come to this point, Longao didn't hide it anymore. He said, "Yes, everyone says that Elder Yin is a great person. Now it seems that you are really powerful." Without waiting for Yin Baishuan to speak, Longao continued, "I really want to know how you recognized me. Master Dragon, please have some tea." At this time, the Longjing tea was already old. Yin Baishuan first poured a cup for Longao, then poured a cup for himself, and said, "It's very simple. Master Long's aura can't be hidden at all. It can be said that I have admired Master Long for a long time. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation." Longao began to feel fearful. He had never expected the outer sect elder of the Ethereal Palace to be so powerful that he could recognize him just by his aura. The more Yin Baishuan acted like this, the more Longao feared him. "Master Long, there is no grudge between us. I am just an outer sect elder of the Ethereal Palace. I am already old and I don't want to interfere in the internal affairs of the palace. So, do you understand what I mean?" Nodding, Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he understood what Yin Baishuan meant. The meaning was simple. I, Yin Baishuan, had no grudge with you. The grudge between you and the Ethereal Palace had nothing to do with me. Yin Baishuan made Longao a little confused. Longao even wondered if the old man in front of him was still an elder of the Ethereal Palace. "Elder Yin. If you don't mind, you can call me Brother Yin." Shrugging his shoulders, Longao said, "Brother Yin, I believe you should know about the grudge between me and the Ethereal Palace. I am puzzled. According to our relationship, we only have swords and knives when we meet. But now you and I are sitting down and drinking tea together. Don't you feel awkward? Master Long, I have just said that the grudge between you and the Ethereal Palace has nothing to do with me. I am already old and I don't want to interfere in the affairs of the sect. In another 2 years, I will leave the Ethereal Palace and live in seclusion. Although our paths are different, I really want to be friends with you. Master Long's actions are definitely unprecedented. Taking the initiative to show goodwill." Until now, Longao still didn't understand what the person in front of him meant. Although the other party took the initiative to show goodwill, Longao still didn't dare to let down his guard. After all, Yin Baishuan was an elder of the Ethereal Palace and not an elder of the Dragon Sect. Sect Master Long, let's get straight to the point. The reason you've come to Floating City this time around is to kill me. However, I can tell you clearly that with your current strength, you're no match for me. Longao nodded. He completely believed this and said, the rumors outside are not true. I also didn't expect that Brother Yin's cultivation has reached the Saint Realm, and the Peak Saint Realm. That's why I am more curious. Since Brother Yin's cultivation has reached the Peak Saint Realm, the Ethereal Palace should pay attention to you. Why? Peak Saint Realm. Although Longao didn't want to believe it, the aura released by Yin Baishun just now was indeed that of a Peak Saint Realm. So Longao knew that Yin Baishun didn't mean any harm. Otherwise, with Yin Baishun's strength, it would be easy for him to deal with him. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble. Master Long, you don't know. I have always wanted to live a carefree life. I don't want to live a life of intrigue. What's more, my cultivation has reached a bottleneck. If I want to continue to break through, I have to calm down and comprehend nature. Otherwise, it will be impossible for me to break through in this lifetime. So that was it. Toward this kind of person, Longao actually still admired him very much in his heart. Master Long, let me give you a piece of advice. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. With your talent and potential, you will definitely become a great emperor in 10 years. At that time, it won't be too late to deal with the four forces. Without waiting for Longao to finish speaking, Yin Baishun continued. The four major forces have been able to dominate the 9-region spirit domain for so many years. Their background is completely not what you can imagine, so it's still the same sentence. Where there is life, there is no need to worry about firewood. How could Longao not know about Yin Baishun's kindness? But could he choose to let it go? Longao knew that even if he was willing to let go of his hatred for the time being, he believed that the four forces wouldn't. Instead of being attacked passively, it was better to take the initiative to attack. Brother Yin, I appreciate your kindness, but I can't avoid everything. There are some things that a man must do in this world. There is no way to avoid it. The four forces will definitely not let me go. In that case, why should I avoid it? It's better to fight. Life and death are up to fate. With admiration written all over his face, Yin Baishun nodded and said, That's right. I know I can't persuade you, but I can tell you a secret about the Ethereal Palace. I hope it will help you. P.S. Congratulations to the appearance of the second protector. Xiao Jiu's chrysanthemum is also for you. I hope everyone will support me. I look forward to the appearance of the elder. Chapter 502. Please go ahead, Brother Yin. Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Yin Baishun wanted to tell him. But seeing how serious Yin Baishun was, it seemed that it was no small matter. Master Long, you're here to deal with Ethereal Palace. Longao didn't say anything, which meant that he agreed. In fact, even a fool could guess that he came to Ethereal City to deal with Ethereal Palace. 10 years ago, the Ethereal Palace found a treasure and guarded it for 10 whole years. You are really lucky. 3 days later, this treasure will mature. As long as you can get it, not only can you increase your strength, you can also make the Ethereal Palace feel heartache. What treasure? Where is it? Longao's interest was piqued. Flying Goose Mountain, Water Curtain Cave. After thinking for a while, Yin Baishun continued. Master Long, you must be careful. There are 2 saints guarding the Water Curtain Cave. Nodding, Longao stood up. When he was about to leave, he suddenly asked, Brother Yin, I'd like to ask, why are you helping me like this? Long Batian. Without continuing to ask, Longao's body quickly disappeared into the crowd. Looking at the young man who had left, Yin Baishun suddenly smiled and said, Senior Long, you saved my family back then. Today, I'll return the favor. From today onwards I, Yin Baishun, will live in seclusion. It turned out that Yin Baishun helped Longao this time because of Long Batian. Because of this, when Yin Baishun said the name of the old ancestor, Longao already knew what had happened. Longao knew very well that the reason why Yin Baishan helped him was not because of his face, but because of the old ancestor. Without thinking about Yin Baishun's question, Longao thought for a while and finally decided to go to the water curtain cave. No matter what treasure it was, he couldn't let Ethereal Palace take advantage of it. Longao was very curious. He didn't know what treasure it was that it was worthy of 2 saints of Ethereal Palace to guard it. What a saint represented, Longao was very clear in his heart, so just thinking about it, he knew how precious the treasure in the water curtain cave was. Longao did not rashly head to the Flying Goose Mountain. No matter what, the water curtain cave had always been guarded by 2 saints. If they were discovered, would it be possible to seize the treasures from the hands of the 2 saints? Longao spent a lot of money to obtain information about the Flying Goose Mountain curtain cave. It turned out that the Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of the Ethereal Palace. Not to mention ordinary disciples, even core disciples of the Ethereal Palace could not go there. The more the Ethereal Palace acted like this, the more certain Longao was that there was definitely a treasure in the Flying Goose Mountain curtain cave. 3 days. Originally, according to Longao's intention, entering Ethereal City this time was to assassinate Yin Baishan and the disciples of Ethereal Palace. But now, he had decided to go to Flying Goose Mountain. If he continued to carry out the assassination, he would definitely alert the enemy. Thinking of this, Longao did not act rashly. Instead, he found an inn and prepared to rest well for 2 days. After 3 days, he would head to the Flying Goose Mountain curtain cave. Ordinary spirit domain. The dragon sect's complete retreat allowed the Ethereal Palace to effortlessly occupy the 8 states. Only the Sky State was left. At this moment, the Ethereal Palace stopped their attacks and stopped abruptly. Unless it was a last resort, Ethereal Palace was still unwilling to completely fall out with Dragon Sect at this time. This was not to say that Ethereal Palace was afraid of Dragon Sect, but was afraid of the other 3. From the beginning to the end, Ethereal Palace did not know the strength of Dragon Sect. If they were stronger than expected, then things would be troublesome. In the beginning, the 4 major forces withdrew from 9 states and Dragon Sect became the only overlord. With Ethereal Palace's re-entry, 9 states was divided into 2, each occupying half of the country. Ethereal Palace forced Dragon Sect to retreat. The people of 9 states who were originally full of confidence in Dragon Sect were all shocked. They did not know what was going on with Dragon Sect. Why were they retreating and not fighting Ethereal Palace head-on? For a long time, Longao had counterattacked. This time, he suddenly chose to retreat, which made everyone depressed. But most of them still chose to believe in Longao, thinking that Ethereal Palace was a villain. One day, Longao would counterattack again and deal a heavy blow to Ethereal Palace. Half of the country. Ethereal Palace's actions caused the Imperial City to take action as well. But the Imperial City was not helping Ethereal Palace, but helping Dragon Sect to deal with Ethereal Palace. Ethereal Palace had never thought that the Imperial City would suddenly attack and fight without any regard for their lives. Were they going to fight head-on? The Ethereal Palace wasn't a fool. If they went head-on against the Imperial City, both sides would suffer heavy losses. That would only benefit the Nether Mansion, Level 3 Long Family, and Dragon Sect. The Ethereal Palace would never do such a stupid thing. Because of this, Ethereal Palace chose to retreat and give up 4 out of the 8 states. This way, 9 states would go from 2 forces to 3 forces. However, Imperial City and Dragon Sect were allies in name. Seeing that Imperial City and Ethereal Palace had re-entered 9 states, Nether Mansion and Level 3 Long Family could no longer sit still. The 4 major forces knew that 9 states had Grave of the Gods. If Imperial City and Ethereal Palace could gain a firm foothold, it would not be so difficult for them to re-enter 9 states. Because of this, Level 3 Long Family and Nether Mansion immediately re-entered 9 states. From the beginning, all of them had retreated. Now, 9 states was once again in chaos. The 4 forces fought for supremacy and started to fight with each other. It wasn't easy for them to take over the 4 states. No matter if it was the Imperial City or the Ethereal Palace, they wouldn't hand it over so easily. Therefore, the four forces started to fight, while the dragon sect retreated to the Sky State and quietly watched the four forces fight. The four major forces had a huge grudge to begin with. It had accumulated over the years. In addition to the countless casualties in the previous war, there was no way to ignite it. This time, the four major forces were completely enraged. They knew that this was not the best time to start a war, but they could not control themselves. Wave after wave, they poured in endless manpower and money. Gradually, the Great War of the 9 states spread to all places except the Tianzhou. The four major forces seemed to have a tacit understanding. No matter who it was, they would not step into Tianzhou. This was giving Dragon Sect enough face. As for the reason, no one knew. Perhaps only the four major forces knew. Imperial City informed Dragon Sect to help. According to the agreement, Imperial City and Dragon Sect were allies. Dragon Sect should help. However, Dragon Sect, Snake Emperor, and Longao all refused. The reason was simple. This was a war between the four major forces. It was not suitable for Dragon Sect to interfere. Imperial City was so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, there was nothing they could do. After all, this was not the time to completely fall out with Dragon Sect. If Dragon Sect went crazy and attacked Imperial City would be in for a real tragedy. P.S. Congratulations on the appearance of the first female elder in this book. Little Nine is sincerely grateful. Little Nine will remember. Chapter 503. The Four Superpowers, East Royal City, Long Family of the West, Nether Mansion of the South, and Ethereal Palace of the North, finally settled down after a fierce battle. Since then, the four superpowers had divided the 9 regions, with each superpower occupying 2 regions and Dragon Sect occupying Tianzhou. In other words, the 9 regions had been divided by the 5 superpowers. Strictly speaking, the 4 superpowers had redivided the 9 regions. The short pause would usher in an even more violent storm. Dragon Sect seemed to have completely given up on fighting for the position of the overlord of the 9 regions. They hid in Tianzhou and did not come out. People in the 9 regions slowly began to suspect what had happened to Dragon Sect. Longao had always been high-profile and vengeful. It was impossible for him to be indifferent when he saw the 4 superpowers entering the 9 regions. All the superpowers sent their spies into Tianzhou, wanting to know what had happened to Dragon Sect. Everyone guessed that something had happened to Longao. Spirit region of the 9 regions, Ethereal Palace. After asking around in Ethereal City, Longao knew almost everything about Flying Goose Mountain. Next, he would go to the Water Curtain Cave. This time, Longao was extra careful. No matter what, there were 2 saints in the Water Curtain Cave, so he had to be extra careful. Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of Ethereal Palace. No one was allowed to enter. For 10 years, Flying Goose Mountain had been turned into an iron bucket by Ethereal Palace. Ordinary people were not allowed to enter within 1,000 meters of Flying Goose Mountain. In fact, many people had already guessed that there were treasures in Flying Goose Mountain. Otherwise, Ethereal Palace would not have done this. Guessing was one thing, but very few people actually dared to enter Flying Goose Mountain. It had to be said that there were many people in this world who were not afraid of death. Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of Ethereal Palace, but they still wanted to enter. There could only be one result. Longao was a sage-to-be martial artist. Unless it was a saint, it would be very difficult for anyone to discover his tracks. Quietly arriving at Flying Goose Mountain, Longao first hid all his aura. Then, he carefully sensed the situation around him. Other than some ordinary disciples, there did not seem to be any illusionary divine martial artists. Longao had already guessed that if nothing unexpected happened, the 2 saints should be in the Water Curtain Cave. Longao followed Yin Baishuan's instructions and entered from another passageway entrance. Before long, he had already arrived outside the cave. The entire cave was covered by a water curtain. As expected, the water curtain cave was magnificent. Longao was stunned for a few seconds. If he could bring his lover to live in seclusion here, it would be a good choice. Longao didn't enter the water curtain cave rashly because he was sure that there were 2 saints in the cave. Saints were different from other people. If his aura was sensed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if he could leave successfully, wouldn't his purpose of coming here be in vain? Long Fu, help me sense the exact location of the 2 saints in the water curtain cave. Also, help me sense what treasures are in the water curtain cave. Master, there are 2 saints in the east and 1 in the west. The treasure in the water curtain cave is very useful. If you can get it, swallow it, refine it and merge it, you can condense the desolate divine body. Then, even a saint won't be able to break through your physical defense. Divine barren body? Longao was shocked. With Long Fu's help, he had already condensed the divine barren body. According to what Long Fu said, once he condensed the divine barren body, he would be able to fight against a saint. Even if he couldn't defeat a saint, at least he wouldn't be as helpless as before. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited. However, Longao didn't act rashly. Looking at the water curtain cave in front of him, he began to think about what he should do to hide from the 2 saints. Longao was very clear in his heart that the 2 saints were guarding the water curtain cave, 1 in the east and 1 in the west. As long as he stepped in, even if he took half a step, he would be discovered. At that time, not to mention obtaining the treasure, he might not even have the chance to leave. He came to the water curtain and looked through the gaps. Longao finally saw the general situation inside the water curtain cave. The entire water curtain cave was incomparably huge, and in the center there was a huge pool. Finally, there was a huge rock in the pool, and on top of the rock, there was a kind of plant. It was 7-colored, and on top of it, there were 2 huge fruits. It was very dazzling. Could the treasures that Yin Baishun and Long Fu were talking about be these 2 fruits? Master, these 2 fruits are called divine fruits. Once consumed, not only will one's cultivation increase greatly, it can even help a titled Great Emperor break through to the divine path realm. I didn't expect that there would be 2 divine fruits in the small ethereal palace. Divine fruits. There was no need for Long Fu to explain further. Longao had already guessed the use of the divine fruits. Just the fact that it could increase one's cultivation showed how powerful the divine fruits were. Longao couldn't wait to get the divine fruits. However, at this moment, Long Fu said, Master, the 2 divine fruits aren't ripe yet. They need to wait until tomorrow evening. Moreover, there is a divine beast guarding the divine fruits. You must be careful. Divine beast? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was shocked. Longao certainly knew what a divine beast represented. There was no doubt that a divine beast was a super-existence on the same level as a divine path warrior. Longao never expected that there would be a divine beast in the water curtain cave. If that was the case, didn't it mean that the divine beast was also waiting for the 2 fruits? If he got the fruits, he would offend the divine beast. Longao felt a headache at the thought of it. I think you've already guessed it. That's right, the divine beast in the pond is also here for the 2 divine fruits. Otherwise, it would have left long ago. Long Fu, can you sense what kind of divine beast is in the pond? Water Qilin. Water Qilin. He couldn't help cursing inside. The Qilin race was one of the strongest races in the world. They could even contend against the dragon race. The Qilin race was divided into many races. They were the Golden Qilin race, the Wood Qilin race, the Water Qilin race, the Fire Qilin race, the Earth Qilin race, the Wind Qilin race, the Lightning Qilin race, and so on. However, the Qilin race was very few in number. This was their greatest weakness. Otherwise, the martial heaven continent would be the Qilin race's world. There would be no dragons or humans. Divine beast Water Qilin. Longao's expression was grave. If it was just one divine beast, then that was one thing. But now it was a Water Qilin. Would he still be able to take action tomorrow evening? He didn't fear the 2 saints. but he couldn't ignore the water Qilin. P.S. Watching TV in the morning, sleeping in the afternoon. Today was very comfortable. Chapter 504. Long Fu, is there any way to avoid the divine beast water Qilin? If it was an ordinary treasure, Longao would have given up on it immediately. No matter what, the divine beast water Qilin was not to be trifled with. But the problem now was that the two divine fruits were too important to him. Putting aside whether he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation, the divine desolate body alone was very important. Master, there is only one way now. What is it? Teleport. As long as you can teleport and snatch the divine fruits the moment they ripen, I believe even the divine beast water Qilin can't do anything about it. Nodding, Longao understood what Long Fu meant. There was no other way. Long Fu's method was the only way out. Just like that, Longao did not leave the water curtain cave. He stood in front of the water curtain and waited quietly. In fact, Longao was very confused. Why didn't the great emperors of the ethereal palace come out for something as precious as the divine fruits? In the end, Longao guessed that the ethereal palace was too confident. Even if there were two saints guarding the divine fruit, he believed that no one would dare to pull a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. Unknowingly, the next evening arrived. In the water curtain cave, the two saints of the ethereal palace stared at the center of the pond. The two divine fruits were about to ripen. They had been guarding here for 10 whole years. Finally, it was time. It's ripened. Seeing that the god fruit had ripened, the two saints were extremely excited. Just as they were about to make a move, a young man suddenly appeared on the giant rock in the middle. His fiery red hair danced wantonly. Without giving the two saints any chance, Longao directly plucked 2 god fruits from the plant. He was pleasantly surprised. But at this moment, a terrifying divine Tao aura exploded from the pond and shrouded the 3 of them. If Longao didn't know about the divine beast water Qilin, he would have been dead by now. But now, Longao knew about the existence of the divine beast water Qilin in advance. He had just obtained 2 divine fruits and once again used teleportation. In an instant, he appeared 1 meter away. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately used all his strength to leave quickly. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Divine beast. Looking at the huge creature that suddenly appeared from the bottom of the water, the two saints were completely stunned. The two saints had been guarding this place for 10 whole years, but they never knew that there was a divine beast hidden under the pool, and it was the most powerful water Qilin in the world. Everyone knew that the Kirin clan and the Colossal Dragon clan were the most powerful divine beasts in the world. The two saints did not even have the chance to resist. They were so scared that their legs trembled, and they almost knelt on the ground. How dare you steal my divine fruit? Die! Lord Divine Beast, it's not us. We don't know what's going on either. The two saints were completely scared out of their wits. They couldn't even speak coherently. After all, it was the water Qilin in front of them. It wasn't some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. In fact, the water Qilin could easily destroy them with a flick of its finger. Die! The water Qilin didn't even listen to the two of them getting to know each other. The two saints seemed to have predicted something. Just as they were about to turn and run, their bodies were suddenly fixed in place. Before they could even let out a scream, the two of them had already been killed. This was the difference between an illusionary divine stage martial artist and a divine stage martial artist. How dare you steal my divine fruit? I'll make you regret being born in this world. The water Qilin didn't seem to be in a hurry. This was the confidence that came from being powerful. Nobody saw how the water Qilin did it. It just disappeared into thin air. Longao was extremely surprised that he managed to steal the two divine fruits using his space teleportation. While he was surprised, he didn't dare to hesitate. After all, the other party was the water Qilin. Once it caught up with him, the consequences would be dire. Longao had used his space teleportation twice consecutively. His soul couldn't support him to use it again. Otherwise, he would lose more than he gained. Brat, I'm going to tear you into pieces. Hearing the voice behind him, Longao was shocked. He didn't even need to turn back to know who had caught up with him. Without any hesitation, he used all his strength and shot forward. Longao was afraid of this and thought of a plan. No matter what, he had entered the territory of the ethereal palace and the spirit domain of the 9 states to deal with the ethereal palace. If he lured the water Qilin to the ethereal palace, wouldn't he be able to kill the water Qilin with a borrowed knife? The ethereal palace was one of the 4 superpowers in the spirit domain of the 9 states. The ethereal palace occupied a few hundred hectares of land and there was no end in sight. At this moment, Longao's figure suddenly appeared. Without giving the ethereal palace any chance, Longao directly shot towards the ethereal peak. Longao? When Fenghui and Lu Bumming saw Longao, they thought that they had seen wrongly. They rubbed their eyes hard, thinking that they had seen a ghost. However, at this moment, before they could react, a terrifying divine Tao aura had already suppressed them. As saints, the 2 of them certainly knew what had happened. They were so scared that their bodies trembled. They couldn't figure out why there was a divine Tao warrior's aura in the ethereal peak. Divine Tao warriors, the most powerful existence in the world, seemed to be extinct. Anyway, there hadn't been a divine Tao warrior in the 9 states for many years. However, at this moment, the divine Tao warrior's aura meant that a divine Tao warrior had appeared. Get out of my way! The powerful divine Tao aura directly suppressed them. The first expert of the ethereal palace, who was also the only great emperor, was about to come out to see what had happened. However, he was frightened by the sudden divine Tao aura and didn't dare to come out. Under such circumstances, the great emperor didn't care about the ethereal palace at all. He wanted to save his own life first. What a joke! Divine Tao warriors were at the peak of martial Tao. Great emperors were like trash in front of divine Tao warriors. Not to mention resisting, they didn't even have the chance to attack. Under divine Tao, all were ants. The divine beast water Qilin actually didn't attack the ethereal palace. This made Longao extremely depressed. According to his calculation, the divine beast water Qilin was lured to the ethereal palace. Even if it didn't destroy the ethereal palace, it would at least bring some losses to the ethereal palace. But what was the result? Longao was annoyed. He didn't care whether the other party was the divine beast water Qilin or not. He scolded. Damn you, why do you keep chasing me? There are so many people here. You can just kill a few of them, especially the great emperor of the ethereal palace. If you kill him, I will immediately return the 2 divine fruits to you. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that with the speed of the water Qilin, it wouldn't be difficult for it to catch up with him. However, the water Qilin didn't do so. What was the reason? It was simple. The water Qilin did it on purpose. It was like he was a mouse and the water Qilin was a cat. Chapter 505. Hearing Longao's roar, all the experts of Ethereal Palace were dumbfounded. Longao scolded a supreme Tao martial artist? This world was too crazy. Longao even dared to scold a supreme Tao martial artist. What kind of existence was a supreme Tao martial artist? It was a super existence that stood at the peak of martial arts. It was simply a matter of minutes for them to kill a semi-sage martial artist. Boy, you are very arrogant. Not bad, not bad. The more Longao behaved like this, the more the water Qilin didn't attack Ethereal Palace. Anyway, it chased after him unhurriedly. Longao and the water Qilin's speed were very fast. In the blink of an eye, the 2 had disappeared without a trace. Until now, everyone in Ethereal Palace heaved a sigh of relief. It was a close call. What the hell happened just now? It must be our illusion. It is very likely that Longao played a trick. Yes, you are absolutely right. Fenghui and Lu Bumming swallowed their saliva fiercely. Both of them were deceiving themselves. They were not willing to believe that Longao was being chased by a supreme Dao martial artist. Of course, both of them hoped that Longao would die. But to say that a supreme Dao martial artist was chasing after Longao, they were not willing to believe it was true even if they were beaten to death. Being chased by the water qilin, Longao could be considered to be extremely depressed. Longao was very clear in his heart. In this case, even if he handed over the 2 divine fruits, he believed that the water qilin wouldn't let it go. Water qilin, treasures belong to those who are capable. Since I have already obtained 2 divine fruits, you should be selfish. Why bother to chase after me? F*ck off. I have waited bitterly for 10 years. When the 2 divine fruits were about to be in my hands, you shameless human beat me to it. Now you are still making sarcastic remarks? If I don't tear you into pieces, I am not a qilin. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Since the 2 divine fruits have already been obtained by me, you have to accept the reality. If Longao's words were heard by others, it was unknown whether it would cause a shock in the world. He actually made a divine beast accept the reality? In this world, who would dare to snatch the mythological beast's things? Longao was absolutely unprecedented. F*ck. The water qilin seemed to be completely infuriated by Longao. Its speed suddenly increased by 3 times. What concept was this? Just as the water qilin was about to catch up, its face suddenly changed. Because at this time, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. That's right, he disappeared into thin air. In the next second, Longao's body had already appeared 1 meter behind him. Space teleportation? The water qilin was stupefied on the spot. It seemed to be in disbelief because this kind of divine ability was something that even a martial artist of the divine Tao couldn't do. At the very least, he couldn't do it. What an interesting kid. I'd like to see what other secrets you have. Dragon Sect, Tianzhou Dragon Sect. The situation that had just stabilized completely erupted once again. Serene Hades Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and third-grade dragon family. It was unknown if they had already formed an alliance. They temporarily put aside their grudges and attacked Tianzhou together. As an alliance, the Imperial City should have helped Dragon Sect to fight against the 3 forces. But in the end, the Imperial City ignored it. It was as if the Imperial City and Dragon Sect weren't in an alliance. From the beginning to the end, Dragon Sect didn't expect the Imperial City to help. Because the Dragon Sect had already guessed this. It would be strange if the Imperial City helped. Dragon Sect Main Hall? At this moment, the Serpent Emperor's face was very solemn. This time, the sect master had left and handed over the authority of the Dragon Sect to him. If anything were to happen to the Dragon Sect in his hands, how would he explain it to the sect master? Damn the Imperial City! After cursing, the Snake Emperor looked at Xia Jun and Ouyang Fei and asked, "Do you two have any good suggestions?" The Snake Emperor knew that whether it was Xia Jun or Ouyang Fei, they were the master's good brothers. Sometimes he had to give them face. Before Xia Jun and Ouyang Fei could speak, footsteps came from outside. The Ghost King rushed in. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, he said, "I know that the 3 forces have started to attack Tianzhou. So, I rushed back as soon as I got the news." Although the Ghost King's sect was an independent existence, the Ghost King wasn't stupid. According to the Ghost King's sect's current strength, if anything happened to Dragon Sect, the Ghost King's sect would end up badly. Because of this, the Ghost King brought the Ghost King's sect back to Dragon Sect when he got the news that the 3 forces were attacking Dragon Sect. He didn't care if he lived or died with Dragon Sect. The Snake Emperor didn't dare to offend the Master's future father-in-law. The Snake Emperor smiled and said, "Ghost King, now that the 3 forces are attacking from different directions, what do you think we should do? Retreat and preserve our strength. We'll wait for the Master to come back." Dragon Sect was protected by a formation and had an army of corpse slaves. Because of this, the Snake Emperor was so confident. Originally, the Snake Emperor wanted to fight the 3 forces head-on and start to fight for Jiuzhou. But the Snake Emperor knew that the Ghost King represented the Master. Because even if the Master was here, he was prepared to endure and not fight the three forces head-on. After thinking about it, the Snake Emperor could only choose to compromise. Nodding, the Snake Emperor said, "If that's the case, I'll summon all my disciples back. Revenge is a dish best served cold." As the saying goes, where there's life, there's hope. As long as we avoid this period of time and wait for Dragon Sect to fully develop, it won't be too late for revenge. How could the Ghost King not know what the Snake Emperor was thinking? Strictly speaking, the difference in status and strength between the Snake Emperor and the Ghost King was huge, but the Ghost King was more suitable to be the leader of a sect than the Snake Emperor because the Ghost King was flexible. Just like that, Dragon Sect chose to endure for now and summoned all their disciples back. The three forces easily took over Tianzhou but didn't dare to attack Dragon Sect. Everyone knew that there was a powerful array in the Dragon Sect. Back then, Longao had relied on the array to repeatedly injure the four major forces. As such, unless the four major forces had water in their heads, they would absolutely not dare to rashly attack the Dragon Sect. The three forces easily took over Tianzhou, causing everyone in Tianzhou to lose faith in Longao. Originally, Longao would counterattack again, but they didn't expect that Longao was like a coward. He hid in Dragon Sect and didn't dare to come out. At the same time that they lost faith in Dragon Sect, many people in Jiuzhou blamed the Imperial City. The two forces were in an alliance, but the Imperial City didn't do anything when the three forces attacked Dragon Sect. Just this point alone showed how shameless the Imperial City was. However, the Imperial City seemed to turn a blind eye to all of this. "After all, you're taking over my two states. It's none of my business if you fight to the death." Just like that, the three forces took over Tianzhou. From then on, Dragon Sect was completely wiped out of Jiuzhou. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for Dragon Sect to make a comeback. Chapter 506. Longao didn't know anything about the situation in Jiuzhou. At this moment, Longao was being chased by the water Qilin bitterly. Longao was extremely depressed because the water Qilin's speed could obviously catch up with him, but it was like a cat chasing a mouse. "Water Qilin, is there something wrong with your head? Ha ha ha, kid, aren't you good at running? I want to see how much strength you have. Don't worry, I will play with you." Longao really wanted to beat up the water Qilin. In anger, Longao directly released a powerful qi of heaven and earth. Rather than being chased bitterly, he would rather have a big fight with the water Qilin. If other people knew what Longao was thinking, they might scold him. "Want to fight with a supreme Tao warrior? Master, to the front left." Hearing Long Fu's sudden voice, Longao forcibly suppressed his impulse. Finally, he rationally suppressed his impulse because he knew that Long Fu would never harm him. Longao did not dare to hesitate in the slightest. He quickly shot toward the front left. "Qi of heaven and earth? Is it Nirvana rebirth?" Feeling the qi of heaven and earth released by Longao, the water Qilin was greatly shocked because it knew clearly what the qi of heaven and earth represented. There were only two situations in which a half-saint warrior could have the qi of heaven and earth. The first situation was that the half-saint warrior had a fortuitous encounter and condensed his own qi of heaven and earth in advance. The second situation was that the half-saint warrior was the reincarnation of an expert and had the powerful qi of his previous life. It was just that his realm hadn't increased yet. But no matter which situation it was a joke in front of the water Qilin. At this moment, the water Qilin was getting more and more curious. It still followed Longao unhurriedly. Longao was chased by the water Qilin all the way. He had already left Ethereal Palace's sphere of influence, and came to a barren land. There were no people around, not even birds or beasts. Looking around, Longao didn't know why Long Fu wanted him to come here. Could it be that he wanted to rely on the environment here to deal with the water Qilin? From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought of killing the water Qilin. After all, the strength of a divine beast was there. With his current strength, as long as the water Qilin was willing, it only needed to move its fingers to easily obliterate him. This was the difference in strength. Long Fu, what should I do next? Master, the water Qilin is too powerful. Even if old master were to take action, he might not be able to suppress the water Qilin. Therefore, he could only rely on the power of heaven and earth to scare the water Qilin away. Longao instantly understood what Long Fu meant. Thinking about it, this was the only way to temporarily suppress the water Qilin. Longao knew that if the primordial divine dragon's original body existed, not to mention one water Qilin, even 10,000 water Qilins wouldn't be a match for the primordial divine dragon. But now, the situation was completely different. Back then, Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon fought Tian Dao together. Long Tian was killed directly. The primordial divine dragon's body exploded and its divine soul was severely injured. Until now, it was even facing the danger of disappearing at any time. With the primordial divine dragon's current strength, how could it forcefully suppress the water Qilin? Master, do as I say. In such a critical moment, how could Longao not listen? Moreover, he had enough of the water Qilin's cat and mouse game. Coming to an open space, the entire world was gray. Longao followed Long Fu's instructions and released a powerful qi of heaven and earth in an attempt to connect with the surrounding power of heaven and earth. Long Fu's intention was very simple. He wanted Longao to release the qi of heaven and earth and connect with the power of heaven and earth. Then, the primordial divine dragon could use the qi of heaven and earth to suppress the water Qilin. Young lad, why aren't you running? Seeing Longao suddenly stop and release the qi of heaven and earth, the water Qilin was shocked. It did not know what this young lad wanted. Could it be that he wanted to fight with it? Water Qilin, as a divine beast, you are shamelessly chasing after me. I want to ask you, do you have any shame? Young lad, you don't have to be so stubborn. Since you dared to steal my 2 god fruits, I will slowly tear you apart piece by piece. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. Longao continued to release the qi of heaven and earth. He did not attack the water Qilin. Instead, he quietly sensed the qi of heaven and earth and said, Water Qilin, do you dare to make a bet with me? Let's hear it. The water Qilin seemed to have been lonely for a long time and was very curious. It stood on the spot lazily and looked indifferently at the human youth in front of it. Its powerful strength gave it confidence. In the eyes of the water Qilin, no matter what Longao did, he would not be able to defeat it. The difference between the illusionary divine stage and the divine stage was not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Water Qilin, do you dare to suppress your cultivation level and have a fair fight with me? If you win, not only will I return the 2 god fruits to you, I will also be at your disposal. How about that? Ha ha ha, young lad, you are too naive. Hearing Longao's words, the water Qilin suddenly laughed as though it had heard the funniest thing in the world. Water Qilin, don't tell me you don't dare? Longao's intention was clear. He wanted to stall for time. Until now, he was still unable to sense the qi of heaven and earth. If that was the case, the primordial divine dragon in the dragon seal space would not be able to help him. It's not that I don't dare, it's just that I don't want to play with you like this. I originally wanted to tease you, but now it seems that the secret on your body is not bad. I will kill you and search your soul. Ha! Longao continued to endure, and did not attack immediately. He was waiting for the qi of heaven and earth that he released to communicate with the qi of heaven and earth so that the primordial divine dragon would help him. Coward, I really feel sad for the Qilin clan. They actually have a clansman like you. Sigh. Hearing Longao's words, the water Qilin's expression finally changed. It coldly said, You dare to insult the Qilin clan. Your crime is unforgivable. Originally, you could have lived for a few more hours, but now, I sentence you to death. As a member of the Qilin clan, the water Qilin naturally wouldn't allow a human to insult his clan. If this matter were to spread back, how would he establish himself in the Qilin clan? He would be ridiculed by the world. As a divine beast, the water Qilin did not place Longao in its eyes. It ruthlessly slapped its palm. In the water Qilin's opinion, this palm was enough to easily obliterate Longao. Just at this moment, a dragon's roar resounded. It was eternal and filled with vicissitudes of life. Immediately after, a black dragon's shadow appeared above Longao. It was constantly flying and spiraling. Looking from below, the entire illusory dragon's shadow covered the entire 9 heavens. The terrifying chi of the divine dragon shrouded the water Qilin. The dragon's roar resounded again, one after another, resounding through the horizon. Primordial divine dragon, impossible, impossible, this is impossible. Chapter 507. Staring blankly at the dragon's shadow that suddenly appeared in front of him, the water Qilin was completely stunned. As a divine beast of the Qilin clan, the water Qilin naturally knew about the existence of the primordial divine dragon. In ancient times, a super expert appeared in the dragon clan, and it was the primordial divine dragon. It was also because of the primordial divine dragon that the dragon clan prospered. However, because Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon went against the heavenly Tao, they were mercilessly wiped out by the heavenly Tao. As a result, the primordial divine dragon fell. This was something that everyone knew. In that case, could the primordial divine dragon that appeared in front of him be fake? The primordial divine dragon might be fake, but the aura that belonged to the primordial divine dragon couldn't be fake. Because of this, the water Qilin was 100% sure that the dragon shadow that suddenly appeared in front of him was the so-called primordial divine dragon that had fallen. Water Qilin. Senior Divine Dragon, what are your orders? The water Qilin was so frightened that his body trembled. He had a feeling that the primordial divine dragon in front of him could easily wipe him out as long as he moved his aura. It was too terrifying. This was the true strength of the number 1 expert of the dragon clan. Do you know the background of the person you were chasing just now? I don't know. Senior Divine Dragon, please enlighten me. Longao, the inheritor of my primordial divine dragon. With a simple sentence, the water Qilin's face turned extremely ugly because he knew clearly the meaning of the primordial divine dragon's words. Since this kid was the inheritor of the primordial divine dragon, he couldn't continue to deal with him. The unwillingness in his heart turned into anger, but he could only keep it in his heart. He didn't dare to show the slightest bit of anger on his face. The primordial divine dragon, the number 1 expert of the dragon clan, was a super existence that went against the heavenly Tao. Water Qilin, you're not convinced? How could he dare not to be convinced? After cursing in his heart, the water Qilin said respectfully, Senior Divine Dragon, I'm not unconvinced, but this kid snatched 2 of my divine fruits. I just want them back. The 2 divine fruits now belong to Longao. The water Qilin's face turned cold, but he didn't dare to say anything. He had to admit that the primordial divine dragon was domineering, but he had the right to be domineering. Senior Divine Dragon, if my family ancestor knows that you're still alive, he will definitely be happy. The old ancestor of the Qilin clan? Just as the water Qilin finished speaking, a hole was forcefully torn open in the void. At this moment, a Qilin phantom suddenly appeared. It was 100,000 feet tall phantom that faced the primordial divine dragon. Immemorial Qilin. Whether it was the primordial divine dragon or the primordial Qilin, they were the strongest existences in ancient times. However, the primordial divine dragon was eventually killed by the heavenly Tao, causing the overall strength of the dragon clan to slowly weaken to that of the Qilin clan. Old friend, I'm really happy to have met you. It's really unbelievable that your soul hasn't been wiped out by the heavenly Tao. Humph. Seeing the immemorial Qilin, the primordial divine dragon seemed to be very unhappy and snorted coldly. However, the primordial divine dragon was very surprised. He didn't know why the Qilin could sense his aura when he had just appeared. As if it could guess what the primordial divine dragon was thinking, the primordial Qilin suddenly smiled and said, "Old friend, don't worry. The heavenly Tao doesn't know of your existence. The reason why I can sense your appearance is because of my Qilin clan's treasure." The primordial divine dragon was well aware of the power of the Qilin clan's supreme treasure. "I want revenge." With a deep sigh, the primordial Qilin said helplessly, "It's been so many years and you're still so stubborn. Even though you know it's impossible, you still insist on doing it. The heavenly Tao isn't something we can shake. I don't care. I swear to wipe out the heavenly Tao." With just him? Being glanced at by the primordial Qilin, Longao's body shuddered. What terrifying strength! Longao knew very well that the huge Qilin shadow that suddenly appeared in front of him was the old ancestor of the Qilin clan. It was a superexistence on the same level as the primordial divine dragon. It was just that the primordial Qilin hadn't fallen and still existed in the world. It was too powerful. In front of such a superexistence, Longao didn't even have the thought of resisting. "He is the inheritor I found, and my only hope." Shaking its head in disdain, the primordial Qilin said, "His strength and talent are average. There's no hope for revenge." As if ignoring the primordial Qilin's disdain, the primordial divine dragon said firmly, "I believe in my choice. Primordial Qilin, your clansmen wanted to kill my successor. How should we settle this debt? How do you want to settle it? Leave his divine soul behind." Hearing this, the water Qilin was so frightened that he almost fell to the ground. He wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew why the primordial divine dragon wanted to leave his divine soul behind. He looked at his old ancestor pitifully and didn't say a word. However, his eyes and expression had already explained everything. "Useless thing, get lost." The water Qilin was instantly delighted. Even though the old ancestor was scolding him, the more the old ancestor was like this, the more it was impossible for the old ancestor to give up on him. No matter what, the old ancestor was in existence on the same level as the primordial divine dragon. As long as the old ancestor took action, the primordial divine dragon wouldn't dare to act recklessly. "Old friend, it's clear who's right and who's wrong. I don't want to say anything more. My clansmen won't be left behind unless you want to fight with me. However, if it was in ancient times, I might not be your opponent. But now..." The primordial Qilin didn't continue speaking, but the meaning in his words was very clear. "That is, with your current strength, you're not my opponent at all. If you insist on having your own way, you'll only be humiliating yourself." How could the primordial divine dragon not know about this? He stared at the huge Qilin phantom in front of him. In fact, the primordial divine dragon was full of confidence. If he chose to perish together with the Qilin, he could easily injure the Qilin's divine soul. However, he only had one goal, which was to seek revenge from the heavenly Tao. In the end, the primordial divine dragon chose to compromise. "Primordial Qilin, I hope to get your help. Old friend, I know what you mean, but I can tell you clearly that I won't help you. If I did, I would have already taken action when you and Long Tian were fighting against the heavenly Tao. I don't have your courage to fight against the heavenly Tao." Before the primordial divine dragon spoke, the primordial Qilin continued. "Do you know why the heavenly Tao doesn't destroy the dragon clan? It's very simple. The heavenly Tao wants to use the dragon clan to lure you out. Since we're old friends, I advise you to give up this idea. As long as your divine soul isn't destroyed, I believe the heavenly Tao won't deal with the dragon clan. It can be considered as preserving a trace of the dragon clan. Otherwise, the dragon clan will be destroyed." Hearing the primordial Qilin's words, Longao finally knew why the heavenly Tao didn't destroy the dragon clan. Chapter 508. Longao couldn't figure out why the heavenly axiom didn't deal with the dragon clan when it had already killed the primordial divine dragon. Longao didn't believe that the heavenly axiom didn't know about this. Since it knew, why did it still find trouble for him? In the end, the heavenly axiom was still afraid of the primordial divine dragon and wanted to use the dragon clan to lure the primordial divine dragon out. What a shameless heavenly axiom! Primordial Qilin, although you're unwilling to help me, I hope you can keep this a secret. I can promise you that. The primordial divine dragon and the primordial Qilin didn't say anything. Then, the two primordial divine beasts disappeared at the same time, and the water Qilin was taken away by the primordial Qilin. At this moment, Longao finally heaved a sigh of relief. He never thought that this matter would lure out the ancestor of the Qilin clan, the primordial Qilin. Master, leave this place quickly. Longao, who was about to sit down and rest, suddenly heard Long Fu's anxious voice. He was very curious. However, he still chose to believe in Long Fu and left the place as quickly as possible. Soon after, the 9 heavens were forcefully torn open, and a huge face suddenly appeared. If Longao was here, he would be shocked to find that the huge face that suddenly appeared was the heavenly axiom that he had dreamed of. It was almost exactly the same. The aura of the primordial divine dragon? Humph, after waiting for so many years, you've finally appeared. I'd like to see how you're going to escape from my hands this time. The huge face sneered. In the next second, the huge face disappeared without a trace. It was still a barren land, as if nothing had happened. The heavenly axiom descended, but it was a step too late. One had to admit that the primordial divine dragon and the primordial Qilin left quickly. Otherwise, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to leave this place. The heavenly axiom was the most powerful existence in the world. Even if Long Tian and the primordial divine dragon joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for the heavenly axiom. In the dragon seal space, the primordial divine dragon looked very weak. Tens of thousands of dragon shadows circled in the dragon shadow space, and an ancient and majestic voice sounded. Longao, the primordial Qilin has already discovered me. In a short period of time, I won't be able to help you. Moreover, after forcefully suppressing the water Qilin, my soul needs to rest for a period of time. Senior Dragon God, don't worry. I'll be careful. Longao was well aware of the primordial mystical dragon's intentions. No matter what, the primordial mystical dragon's original body had perished, and its spirit had been severely injured. Now that it had forcefully helped him, its spirit had been damaged once again. Longao, if nothing unexpected happens, the heavenly Tao must have sensed my aura. It's just that it won't be able to find me in a short period of time, so you must increase your strength as quickly as possible. I understand. After the primordial divine dragon finished speaking, it was clearly extremely weak and returned to the blood pool. Long Fu, I really want to ask, what kind of existence is the heavenly Tao? Was he a warrior? Or a divine beast? I don't know. You don't know? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's face froze. What kind of existence was the heavenly Tao? Master, the heavenly Tao can be said to be an illusory existence. It's the existence that truly stands at the pinnacle of heaven and earth. Even the 2 masters back then couldn't defeat the heavenly Tao. Just think about it, and you'll know how terrifying the strength of the heavenly Tao is. Nodding his head, Longao didn't continue asking because there was no need for Long Fu to explain the strength of the heavenly Tao. Meeting the ancestor of the Qilin clan this time was the most shocking thing for Longao because no matter what, the primordial Qilin and the primordial mystical dragon were super existences at the same level. Even if their strength wasn't as strong as the heavenly Tao, they were still considered one of the top existences in the continent. Taking a deep breath, Longao still had some lingering fear. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the primordial mystical dragon this time, he believed that it would be difficult for him to resist the water Qilin. Even so, Longao knew that it would be difficult for the primordial mystical dragon to help him in the future. If he were to meet another divine beast or divine warrior, would he still have such good luck? Strength, in the end, it was still because he wasn't strong enough. Otherwise, if he were to meet a strong enemy, he might not even be able to keep his life. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this problem and took out 2 divine fruits. According to Long Fu, as long as he consumed 1 divine fruit, not only would his cultivation increase greatly, he could even condense the desolate divine body. This time, after encountering the water Qilin and almost losing his life, Longao still didn't choose to give up and didn't return to his family. Instead, he continued to enter the ethereal city and assassinate the disciples and elders of the ethereal palace. However, at this time, Longao already knew about the matters of the 9 states. He never expected that the rank 3 dragon family, Nether Mansion, and ethereal palace would suddenly intervene in the 9 states and enter the Tianzhou. Hearing that the dragon sect didn't fight them head-on and chose to retreat, Longao let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, the strength of the 3 major forces was there. If the sects chose to fight head-on, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao wasn't surprised that the imperial city didn't help the dragon sect. This was because from the beginning to the end, he had never believed in the shameless imperial city. The alliance between the imperial city and the imperial city this time was just a temporary measure. After thinking about it, Longao finally decided to ignore the matters of the 9 states. The most important thing now was to assassinate the upper echelons of the ethereal palace. Once he succeeded, the ethereal palace would have no choice but to withdraw from the 9 states. As for the remaining rank 3 dragon family and Nether Mansion, Longao didn't plan to look for them so quickly. However, since the 2 families were so reckless, it seemed that he had to repay them well. Otherwise, the Nether Mansion and rank 3 dragon family would really think that he was easy to bully. Ethereal City. When Longao returned to the Ethereal City, he learned that Yin Baishun had resigned from the position of Elder of the Ethereal Palace. It was said that he was living in seclusion. Longao was very grateful to this old man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get 2 divine fruits. At this time, Longao didn't continue to hesitate. He began to assassinate, focusing on the super disciples and guardian elders of the ethereal palace. Longao was a half-saint warrior. Unless a saint appeared, no one below the saint realm could resist his assassination. In this way, without the knowledge of the ethereal palace, Longao had begun his assassination. The news that Longao was being hunted by a supreme Tao warrior had spread throughout the 9 states. The first reaction of anyone who received the news was that they didn't believe it. What a joke! A supreme Tao warrior was hunting down Longao? A supreme Tao warrior was the most powerful warrior. Even if Longao liked to play counterattacks, it was impossible for him to provoke a supreme Tao warrior. Moreover, the supreme Tao warrior had disappeared for many years. When did a supreme Tao warrior come out? Everyone was scolding the ethereal palace for being shameless. They thought that the ethereal palace was spreading rumors to disrupt the morale of the dragon sect so that they could take advantage of the situation. Chapter 509. Dragon sect did not believe the news released by Ethereal Palace at all. Ethereal Palace was very depressed. It was obvious that Longao was being hunted down by a supreme Tao warrior. Why did no one believe it? If Ethereal Palace said this a year ago, 99 out of 100 people would choose to believe it. However, since Ethereal Palace and Longao started the war, their reputation had almost been ruined. Ethereal Palace. What's going on? Elders, I don't know what happened. Recently, many outstanding disciples in the sect have been assassinated. Even some elders and protectors were not spared. Hearing this, both Fengwei and Lu Buming's faces were extremely gloomy. Could it be him? Both of them thought of the same person at the same time. That was Longao. Impossible. Longao is being hunted down by a supreme Tao warrior. Even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he will definitely die. You're right. It's impossible for Longao. But other than this guy, who else dares to go against Ethereal Palace? Both of them fell into silence because they did not know what had happened from the beginning to the end. They could not figure out who was so fearless to provoke the lion and pull the tooth out of the tiger's mouth. After a deep sigh, Fenghui said helplessly, "This time the sect lost 2 divine fruits. Ancestor is very angry. Well, this should be a blessing in disguise. 2 elders were killed. Just think about it, and you know what happened in the Water Curtain Cave." "You mean there's a Supreme Tao warrior in the Water Curtain Cave?" "I can say that Longao went to the Water Curtain Cave this time and encountered a Supreme Tao warrior to snatch the divine fruits. Although I don't know why he was being hunted down by a Supreme Tao warrior, this is the only explanation." Just when Fenghui and Lu Buming could not figure it out, Longao had already left Ethereal City and was heading towards the Imperial City. In the Imperial City, Duan He and Duan Kai were surprised to hear that Longao had entered the Imperial City. However, Dragon Sect and the Imperial City had always been in an alliance. At least they had not fallen out yet. If they fell out so easily, Duan He and Duan Kai would not have chosen to ally with Dragon Sect. "Master Dragon, we are honored by your presence. Please forgive us for not going out to meet you." Looking at the 2 of them, Longao's heart was filled with disdain. However, he still said the same thing. The current situation was simply not the right time to shed all pretense of cordiality. At the very least, the Dragon Sect had to be thoroughly developed. "Brother Duan, I've come here for a purpose. I want to ask the 2 of you, is the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect still considered an alliance?" The 2 of them sneered in their hearts. They had already guessed that Longao would do this. Duan He smiled and said, "Master Dragon, you must be joking." The Royal City and the Dragon Sect are allies. If that's the case, then I would like to ask, since we are allies, why didn't the Royal City help when the 3 forces attacked Tianzhou? Is this what you call an alliance? Longao's tone was clearly questioning, which made Duan He and Duan Kai's expressions change slightly. However, the 2 of them suppressed it in the end. Duan He said, "Master Dragon, it seems that you don't understand the situation. Since we are allies, why didn't the Dragon Sect help us when the Imperial City and the other 3 forces fought over the 9 states, and invited the Dragon Sect?" Of course, Longao knew this very well. It was also because of this that Longao was very depressed. If he was in the sect, he would definitely send a small group of people, even if it was just for show. No matter who is right and who is wrong, I am not in the sect. I just want to know one thing. Will the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect still be allies in the future? Of course, Master Dragon. I hope you understand that the alliance is not one-sided. If the Dragon Sect does not want to be allies, then there is nothing we can do. Seeing that the 2 sides were about to break down, Duan Kai, who had not spoken, suddenly laughed and said, "Master Dragon, this is all a misunderstanding. Please sit. Let's discuss the future." The 3 of them entered the pavilion and sat down. "Master Dragon, we heard that you are being chased by a Supreme Tao warrior. Is this true?" Both Duan He and Duan Kai were very concerned about this matter. No matter what, a Supreme Tao warrior was a legendary existence. No one had seen a real Supreme Tao warrior. In fact, the 2 of them already had an answer in their hearts. If Longao was really being chased by a Supreme Tao warrior, would he still come to the Imperial City this time? Shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao said, "Although I don't know who started the rumor, I'm sitting here perfectly fine. If I'm being chased by a Supreme Tao martial artist, do you 2 think you can still see me?" Nodding, Duan Kai said, "It seems that the Misty Palace is doing this on purpose. They just want to take over the Tianzhou and the Dragon Sect. Master Dragon, I believe you are already clear about the current situation in the 9 states. In that case, we would like to hear what you plan to do next." "Counterattack." "Counterattack?" "Yes, counterattack. In fact, the 3rd-grade Long family, the Misty Palace and the Nether Mansion have always been at odds with each other. Previously, they had a great battle and suffered countless casualties. If we can sow discord between them, I believe the 3 forces will soon be divided. At that time, it will be much easier for us to defeat them one by one. Sect Leader Long, to be honest, it's not easy to sow discord. Now that the three major forces have each occupied 2 prefectures, unless something major happens, I believe that the 3 major forces won't easily make a move. Moreover, it's a fight to the death. Leave this matter to me, but I have a condition. The Imperial City must help me. Seemingly surprised, Duan Kai and Duan He still nodded. The two of them also wanted to know what method Longao was going to use to sow discord between the 3 forces. Following that, Longao explained his plan. After listening to it, both of them cursed in their hearts for being despicable, but Duan He still agreed. No matter what, if the 3 forces succeeded, it would definitely be beneficial to the Imperial City. Just like that, the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect formed an alliance again. However, this time, the 2 forces seemed to be very low-key and did not spread the news. Because of this, everyone thought that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect had completely split up. 9 states. The 9 states was completely divided by the 4 forces, but the Imperial City did not enter the Tianzhou. In order to fight for the Tianzhou, the 3 forces had become like fire and water, and could start a war at any time. Even so, 10 days had passed, and the 3 forces did not have any intention of making a move. This made the people who wanted to watch a good show very unhappy, not knowing what the 3 forces were thinking. But for some reason, the 3 forces that were originally at peace suddenly started fighting. This time, the battle was very intense, and it was a situation where either one of them would die. Chapter 510. The third-grade Long family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace started a war. There were countless casualties. Corpses were everywhere and blood flowed like a river. No one knew why the 3 forces suddenly started a war. It was as if it had happened overnight. The Imperial City didn't intend to interfere, but the 3 forces weren't fools. If both sides were injured, the Imperial City would benefit. Since then, the 4 forces started a chaotic war. The war spread from Tianzhou to the entire 9 states. The Dragon Sect didn't participate in the war. Not to mention whether they were strong enough to fight against the 4 forces, there was no need for the Dragon Sect to interfere. 9 states territory, Sin City. Longao didn't continue to assassinate the disciples and elders of Ethereal Palace. Instead, he wanted to devour the 2 divine fruits first. Master, the 2 divine fruits have many uses. If you devour them, you can break through the half-saint realm and directly become a saint. Ordinary people couldn't resist the temptation of directly becoming a saint. However, Longao didn't agree immediately. Instead, he asked, Long Fu, what other uses do they have? Longao wasn't a fool. After all, Long Fu must have more benefits. Otherwise, with Long Fu's character, he would definitely let him devour the divine fruits and become a saint. Longao knew Long Fu too well. Master, the divine fruits have many uses. First, they can help you condense the desolate divine body. But it's difficult to improve your realm. Longao understood this very well. After all, he couldn't have both. The other use is to use the power of the divine fruits to refine a divine body puppet. Long Fu, what's a divine body puppet? It's very simple. Master, if we can refine a saint corpse slave now, we can let it fuse with the divine fruits. Its defense alone will increase by 10 times. Plus, it'll be immortal. Long Fu didn't continue, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Longao began to ponder because he had 3 choices before him. First, he could consume the divine fruit and break through to the saint realm. The second was to help him condense the desolate divine body. The third was to create the most powerful undead puppet. It had to be said that all 3 effects were extremely tempting. No matter which one it was impossible to give up on them. Which one should he choose? Long Fu did not rush him as he quietly waited. Just like that, the dragon's seal space fell into silence for a moment. After thinking about it, Longao chose to give up on becoming a saint in the end. This was because he knew very well that he could rely on his own efforts and cultivation to increase his cultivation, but the divine desolation body could not be achieved all the time. Longao was about to choose the remaining desolate divine body and divine body puppet, but then Long Fu suddenly said, "Master, you know which one to choose." "Why is that?" Hearing this, Longao was shocked. He had 2 divine fruits in his hands. Even if he didn't break through, he could at least condense the desolate divine body and divine body puppet. But now, he could only choose one. What about the remaining divine fruit? "Master, 2 divine fruits are only enough for you to condense 1/3 of the desolate divine body." F***ck Longao cursed in his heart. He had never thought that 2 divine fruits could only condense 1/3 of the desolate divine body. Didn't that mean that if he wanted to condense the real desolate divine body, he would need 6 divine fruits? 6 divine fruits. Where would he go to steal the remaining 4? Longao even wanted to give up and focus on devouring the divine fruits to break through to the Saint Realm. But after thinking about it, he still decided to condense the desolate divine body. After all, in his current situation, he only lacked defensive power in terms of speed, strength, and defense. For attack power, he had the blood-sucking broadsword, Heaven and Earth's aura, Heaven and Earth's sorrow, and so on. He could fight against high-level half-saints. For speed, he had the space teleportation, which could ignore many high-level warriors. As for defensive power, it seemed that the desolate divine body alone was not enough. In desperation, Longao could only choose the desolate divine body. "Long Fu, let's start." Long Fu nodded. He seemed to know that Longao would choose to condense the desolate divine body, so he wasn't surprised. In this way, Longao directly swallowed the 2 divine fruits and began to condense the so-called desolate divine body. Spirit realm of the 9 states, Imperial City inside the pavilion. Duan he cursed and said angrily, "Father, Longao, that despicable and shameless thing, originally said that the 3 forces were fighting, and we would reap the benefits. But now, we are also involved in the chaos, and the dragon sect is staying out of it." Duan Kai's face was gloomy to the extreme, and it was as ugly as it could be. Because both of them never thought that Longao would set them up at this time. With the current situation of the chaos, even if the Imperial City wanted to withdraw, it would not be easy. "Father, since Longao doesn't know what's good for him, we don't need to talk nonsense. Let's just destroy the dragon sect." Duan Kai waved his hand, and his face was extremely solemn. He suddenly asked, "Do you know why the other 3 forces don't dare to rashly attack the dragon sect?" Duan he shook his head. He really didn't know about this. Because under normal circumstances, since the 3 forces had already entered Tianzhou, destroying the dragon sect was a must. But what was the result? The 3 forces only cared about the chaos, and didn't even bother to deal with the dragon sect. Once the 4 forces were defeated and injured, the dragon sect would be the biggest beneficiary. Back then, Longao caused havoc in the Ethereal Palace. According to the Ethereal Palace, killing Longao was a matter of minutes. But in the end, a titled Great Emperor suddenly appeared. Not only did he take Longao away, but he also represented Longao and the Ethereal Palace to make a 1-year agreement. Duan he wasn't a fool. Of course, he could understand the meaning behind his father's words. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't shocked. "Father, you mean that once the 4 forces attack the dragon sect, I'm afraid that this titled Great Emperor martial artist will appear?" Duan Kai nodded. Although he didn't want to believe it, he still said helplessly, "A titled Great Emperor isn't someone the 4 forces can provoke. The dragon sect's foundation and strength may not be strong, but just having a titled Great Emperor is enough to deter the 4 forces." Hearing this, Duan Kai finally understood why his father and the 3 forces didn't dare to easily deal with Longao and the dragon sect. In the end, the 3 forces and his father weren't afraid of Longao and the dragon sect. Instead, they were afraid of the titled Great Emperor and the dragon sect. Otherwise, the 4 forces wouldn't even care about a small Longao and the dragon sect. "Father, if that's the case, what should we do now?" "Wait and see. See what the 3 forces will do." We can't take the lead this time. Otherwise, we'll be the ones to suffer. Chapter 5:11. After consuming the two god fruits, Longao spent an entire day and night before he managed to condense 1/3 of his divine desolate body. Even so, Longao was still in awe. He would not have known if he had not condensed it, but the moment he did, he was shocked. Longao had a feeling that even if he stood still and allowed martial artists below the illusionary divine stage to attack him, they would not be able to break through his divine desolate body. Furthermore, Longao was clear that once he had fully condensed his divine desolate body, his physical defense would be comparable to that of the giant dragon race. What did this mean? Longao stretched his back in surprise. After calculating the time, he realized that he had already condensed his divine desolate body for an entire day and night. He could not delay any longer, and immediately continued his assassination. In this way, Longao was alone and constantly wandering around the ethereal palace. He didn't kill anyone he saw. Instead, he only killed the most outstanding disciples and powerful guardian elders of the ethereal palace. Longao was very powerful. His speed, defense, and powerful attacks were almost perfect. He could kill all martial artists below the illusionary divine stage in seconds and effortlessly defeat beginner sage to be. Even intermediate sage to be and high sage to be were not a problem for him. Only peak sage to be could cause trouble for Longao. This was Longao's strength. Outstanding disciples, elders, and protectors kept disappearing, and their corpses were placed in front of the ethereal palace. This caused everyone in the ethereal palace to be in a state of panic. They did not know what was going on. Everyone was shocked and fearful. No one would have thought that someone would dare to go against the ethereal palace. What kind of joke was this? Was there something wrong with the other party's brain? One had to know that the ethereal palace was one of the 4 superpowers of the spirit domain in the land of the 9 continents. Even the other 3 superpowers did not dare to provoke the ethereal palace, let alone ordinary people. Which idiot was it that dared to provoke the ethereal palace? Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that this person was obviously seeking revenge on the ethereal peak. He specifically killed the outstanding disciples, elders, and guardians of the ethereal peak, leaving no way out for himself. Among the higher-ups of the ethereal palace, including Fengwei and Lu Bumming, the first person they guessed was Longao. But after thinking about it, they felt that it was unlikely. No matter what, Longao was being chased by a supreme Tao warrior. His life and death were unknown. How could he free himself to deal with the ethereal palace? This was utter nonsense. Regardless of whether other people believed that Longao was really being chased by a supreme Tao warrior, everyone in the ethereal palace believed it very much, because many people felt the aura of the supreme Tao. If it wasn't Longao, then who could it be? No matter how they thought about it, the ethereal palace could not figure out who it was that wanted to deal with the ethereal palace. However, no matter what, the most mysterious person was also the most terrifying. As long as this person was not eliminated, the ethereal palace would not be at peace. Left with no other choice, the ethereal palace could only choose to withdraw and recall all the disciples they had sent out. After hearing the news, Longao was not surprised at all, because he had already guessed that the ethereal palace would definitely do this. Since the ethereal palace had already started to take precautions, Longao did not continue to assassinate. Assassination like this had to be carried out unintentionally in the ethereal palace, so that it could achieve twice the effect with half the effort. From the beginning to the end, there was only one person who felt the most depressed, and that was the ethereal palace. They thought that after summoning all the disciples, the other party would definitely be driven to desperate actions and would impulsively attack the ethereal palace. However, since the disciples were summoned back, the other party had completely disappeared. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to catch this person. After Longao returned to the dragon sect, he immediately called everyone, which could be considered as a high-level meeting of the dragon sect. Master, you're finally back. Seeing that Longao had returned to the sect smoothly, everyone was pleasantly surprised. Because Longao was the soul of the dragon sect. Once he left, he would basically be paralyzed in the face of major problems. I have a rough understanding of the current situation. First, I'll say two things. All of you, take a seat. Everyone did not stand on ceremony. After all, they knew their master very well. He was a very casual person. Everyone sat down and looked at Longao, wanting to hear what Longao had to say. First, you guys did the right thing. With the current strength of the dragon sect, it's not suitable for us to go head-to-head with the four major forces. But second, when the Imperial City invited us to take action, you guys should not have rejected it. Even if it was just for show, you guys would have made us very passive. Remember, no matter how big the grudge between us and the Imperial City is, we are still allies. No one said anything, but they all realized the seriousness of the problem and nodded their heads. But you guys have done well. Now that the four major forces are in a mess, we just have to wait and see. Master, if the four major forces win, I believe that the next target will be us. Longao waved his hand. How could he not know about the Snake Emperor's worries? He said. If the four major forces dared to attack us, they would have started long ago. They wouldn't have waited until now. Longao was very confident about this because he knew very well that the four major forces did not dare to attack the dragon sect not because they were afraid of him, but because they were afraid of Tong Linger. Back when he created havoc in the Ethereal Palace, Tong Linger's sudden appearance shocked the Ethereal Palace. He believed that the third-rank Long family, the Nether Mansion, and the Imperial City also knew about this. Since that was the case, even if the four major forces were given 100,000 guts, they would not dare to attack him. Longao was almost certain that among the four major forces, the East Royal City, the West third-rank Long family, the South Nether Mansion, and the North Ethereal Palace, the strongest was probably a titled Great Emperor. There was not a single supreme Dao martial artist. Since that was the case, the four major forces would definitely not provoke the dragon sect. Because provoking a titled Great Emperor was not a wise move. The Snake Emperor was very surprised. He did not know why the master was so confident, but since the master had said so, he could not say anything. After all, Longao was the master of the dragon sect. Master, how is Sin City? Other than the chaotic battle between the four forces, everyone was also concerned about another issue, and that was Sin City. As everyone knew, Sin City of the Nine States Spirit Domain was the territory of the sect master. Therefore, the stronger Sin City was, the better it would be for the dragon sect. It's developing pretty well. Once I'm done with the dragon sect, I'll increase the development of Sin City. Also, other than managing the affairs of the sect, you must not slack off on your cultivation. Remember, only by becoming stronger can you develop the power of the sect. Otherwise, everything else is just nonsense. Understood, Master. Longao did not want to say anything more because there were some things that he could only say. As for whether they were willing to do it, it was up to them. Even if he was the master, there was nothing he could do. P.S. Recommendation tickets are free. Everyone, spend some recommendation tickets and some monthly rewards. Thank you for your support. Chapter 512. Dragon Sect. At the peak of the mountain. This battle between the four forces is our best chance. It would be a pity if we give up this chance. Longao clearly understood the meaning behind Ghost King Aotian's words. The four forces are not to be underestimated. We have to be careful. I'd rather walk for a few more years than die. But, without waiting for Aotian to speak, Longao had already continued. The chaotic battle between the four major forces seems to be earth-shattering, but in reality, it is simply unable to harm the Foundation, so rather than doing useless work, it is better for us to develop our own strength first. Longao didn't want to say much to Aotian. He had to admit that Ao Tian was very strong. But there was one bad thing about him. He liked to fight for fame and profit. For power, he was willing to give up everything, including his daughter. Because of this, Longao didn't like Ao Tian. If it wasn't for Ao Xue, he wouldn't have allied with Ghost King's sect. Ao Tian seemed to know this too. He didn't say anything and left quietly. Only Longao was left at the peak of the mountain. Looking at the endless void in the distance, Longao thought of a figure. It was a person he wanted to find even in his dreams. Yuyin, where are you? Do you know how much I miss you? I really, really miss you. If you don't leave me, I'll stay with you in life and death. Longao clenched his fists and stared at her. His face was full of determination. The four forces were fighting and Dragon's sect was in seclusion, causing chaos in the 9 states. Everyone was in danger and wanted the four forces to be destroyed. Ever since Longao returned to the sect, he was either setting up formations or refining pills. This was because he was going to refine high-grade pills to help most people in the sect improve. In the end, Dragon's sect's overall strength was still too low. If he wasn't in the sect, Dragon's sect would fall apart. Because of this, Longao was going to improve everyone's strength. If Longao's thoughts were known by others, he wondered if he would be despised. Was it even possible for a collective breakthrough to happen? The imperial city of the Crimson Prefecture almost died of joy upon discovering the 99 steps. The martial heaven continent had a total of 99 steps to the heavenly stairway. However, each one of them was a legendary existence because it was very difficult to discover. Initially, the Crimson Province had already been occupied by the imperial city. However, after the matter of the 99 steps to heaven was exposed, the other 3 major forces, the Rank 3 Long family, the Nether Mansion, and the Ethereal Palace, immediately began to attack the Crimson Province. In any case, the 4 major forces had already started fighting, and the 3 major forces couldn't care less. According to the legends, the 99 steps of the celestial stairway were located in different parts of the martial heaven continent. As long as one could reach the peak of the celestial stairway, they would be able to obtain supreme martial power. It was precisely because of this that the 4 major forces scolded the 9 great clans of the Crimson Province for not reporting the fact that the Crimson Province had the 99 steps to heaven. If it wasn't for this chaotic battle, it was believed that the 9 great clans of the Crimson Province would have kept the matter of the 99 steps to heaven a secret. However, before the 4 major forces could deal with the 9 great clans, all the 9 great clans had gone into hiding. The 4 major forces couldn't care less about the 9 great clans. They all began to fight over the 99 steps to heaven. However, the 4 major forces helplessly found that in the end, it was all nonsense. After all, anyone could climb the 99 steps to heaven. The 99 steps to heaven seemed like a lot, but the number of people who had actually found the 99 steps to heaven was very few. After finding the 99 steps to heaven, the chaotic battle between the 4 major forces wasn't so intense. That was because everyone wanted to immediately try climbing the 99 steps to heaven. The allure of the legends was too great. Longao, who had also received this news, was also a bit grave. That was because he was the first person in the past century to reach the 99 steps to heaven. Yigudu? Longao vaguely remembered that when he reached the peak of the 99 steps to heaven, he met a mysterious expert. Without a doubt, Longao was now finally sure that the mysterious expert he met back then was a powerful warrior of the divine path. Until now, Longao still didn't know why Yigudu would appear at the peak of the 99 steps to heaven. Now that he thought about it, Yigudu's strength was simply too terrifying. Even when compared to powerful beings like the primordial divine dragon and the primordial Qilin, he wasn't inferior in the slightest. The world was vast, and there were as many experts as there were trees in the forest. Indeed, there was always someone better than you. Longao knew very well that he was still a frog at the bottom of the well. He had only seen the tip of the iceberg of the continent. He seemed to have yet to come into contact with real warriors. For example, the Wanshou sect, the Long family, the Heaven and Earth sect, Yigudu, the primordial Qilin. There were too many experts waiting for him. Originally, Longao didn't want to interfere in the battle between the four big forces. However, he was still very concerned about the 99 steps to heaven. Putting aside whether he could reach the peak of the 99 steps to heaven, every step he climbed was a test of his strength. Only through a life and death experience could he have a qualitative breakthrough in his cultivation. The most important thing was that the 99 steps to heaven couldn't be moved. Otherwise, he would have done everything he could to bring the 99 steps to heaven with him. What should he do? Although they had found the 99 steps to heaven, the four big forces were very depressed. This was because countless disciples of the four big forces, including illusionary divine experts, were unable to reach the peak of the steps to heaven. Putting aside the peak, not a single person was able to reach the top 30 steps. It was imaginable how big of a blow this was to the four big forces. But even so, there were still countless people who rushed into the 99 steps of heaven. Each and every one of them did not care about their lives as they stepped on the steps again and again. After a long time, the four major forces also realized the problem. The chaotic scene did not bring any benefits at all. It was because of this that the four big forces came to an agreement. Every day, the four big forces could only send 10 people to climb the 99 steps to heaven. Each person only had 3 chances, and once they failed, they had to leave immediately. The news of the four big forces obtaining the 99 steps to heaven had spread throughout the entire Tianwu continent. Regardless of whether it was the Wanshou sect or the Long family, when these super forces received the news, they didn't put this matter in their eyes. It was as if the 99 steps to heaven were nothing to them. It was because of this that the four big forces heaved a sigh of relief. Without the interference of the super forces, they could finally relax. After settling the 99 steps to heaven, the four big forces started the battle again. This time, the four big forces seemed to be working even harder. This was because this battle was destined to determine who would be the final winner, and who would be the final overlord. The winner would be able to become the overlord of the 9 regions and slowly search for the so-called grave of the gods. Chapter 513. Longao was prepared to intervene in the matter of the 99 steps. But after thinking about it, he felt that with the sect's current strength, it would be useless even if he intervened. In other words, he could only rely on the corpse slave army. But the corpse slave army's overall strength was weak. Even if they had an undying body, it was impossible for them to chase after the overlord position. With no other choice, Longao informed Dugubai and Long Patian to call back the corpse slave army from Sin City. When Longao went to Sin City this time, he had created an army of over 100 corpse slaves. All of them were World King and World Emperor spirit beasts. In addition, they all had undying bodies. One could imagine just how terrifying it was. Just as Longao was about to make a move, something unexpected happened. After a few simple words, Longao immediately left the dragon sect and rushed back to his family. It turned out that for some unknown reason, Aoshue had suddenly fainted. No matter what Long Haoshe and the others did, they couldn't wake Aoshue up. Long family, in a very quiet and elegant room. What happened? Ao Tian's face was very ugly because he didn't know what happened to his daughter. No one answered. In fact, in the hearts of the Long family, they didn't like Ao Tian. After all, it was this person who stopped Long Ao and Aoshue from getting together. Long coughed twice. As Long Ao's father, he couldn't ignore his in-laws. He said helplessly, "Brother Ao, I don't know why, but Aoshue suddenly fainted yesterday. We thought of many methods, but we couldn't wake Aoshue up." Nodding, Long Ao roughly understood the situation. He waved his hand and said, "All of you can leave. I'll take care of this." Hearing that, everyone began to leave. Even Proud Heaven didn't want to, but in the end, he still chose to leave. Inside the room, It was very quiet. Besides Longao and Aoshua's breathing, there was no other sound. Aoshua, what's wrong with you? With a deep sigh, Longao appeared to be very calm, but in his heart, he was extremely anxious. He had no idea what was going on with Aoshua at this moment, and why she was unconscious. Longao came to the bedside and gently placed his hand on Aoshua's right arm. A gentle energy entered Aoshua's body and slowly moved about as he carefully observed her body. He wanted to find out why Aoshua was unconscious. 2 hours later, Longao almost went berserk because he still couldn't figure out what was going on in Aoshua's body. In the end, Longao helplessly summoned Long Fu and impatiently asked, Long Fu, what happened to Aoshua? Nodding, Long Fu didn't say much. He released a wave of energy from his body and silently entered Aoshua's body. After a while, Long Fu's expression became more and more serious. Long Fu, what's going on? Master, Aoshua's body isn't quite right, and someone did something to her body. It seems that you have to find someone to solve this matter. Longao wasn't an idiot. Of course, he understood Long Fu's meaning. With an extremely ugly expression, Longao nodded and immediately left the room. He found Ao Tian and straightforwardly asked, Uncle Ao, I want to ask you, who did something to Aoshua's body? Hearing Longao's words, Ao Tian's expression changed. Ao Tian never thought that Longao would discover the secret in Aoshua's body after just a few minutes of investigation. The more Ao Tian acted like this, the more Longao was sure that Ao Tian was hiding something from him. Longao didn't say anything, but his expression was extremely ugly. However, because Ao Tian was Aoshua's father, he could only endure it. However, his heart was filled with anger. Was this really Aoshua's father? Clenching his fists tightly, Longao forcefully suppressed the anger in his body. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself. After a deep sigh, Ao Tian helplessly said, I didn't want to talk about this, but since it has already happened, I hope that you won't tell anyone. Okay. Ao Tian understood Longao's anger very well. The more Longao was like this, the happier Ao Tian was because this showed that Longao cared about his daughter. Ao Tian brought Longao to a very secluded place with no one around. Speak, what's going on in Aoshua's body? Longao, do you know Aoshua's mother? Shaking his head, Longao didn't say anything. He quietly listened because Ao Tian suddenly mentioned Aoshua's mother. Could it be that this matter had something to do with Aoshua's mother? Back then, little Shue's mother and I secretly promised to marry each other. Unexpectedly, we were discovered by little Shue's race. They chased after us and in the end, little Shue was captured by the enemy. Although I rescued little Shue in the end, little Shue's body was tampered with. Longao still didn't say anything. He quietly listened, but his expression was extremely serious. Longao, I know you love Aoshua very much, but I advise you to leave Aoshua. Otherwise, not only will you harm yourself, but also Aoshua. Why? Since things have already reached this point, I won't hide it from you. Little Shue's mother and little Shue are actually not human. Not human? Little Shue is not human. Hearing Ao Tian's words, Longao's first reaction was disbelief. Because no matter who it was, no one would believe this. It was too boring. Even if Ao Tian didn't want him and Aoshua to be together, he didn't have to do this. Longao couldn't understand. According to Ao Tian's character, since things had already reached this point, there was no way he would stop him and Aoshua. Because Ghost King's sect was now completely dependent on Dragon's sect. Once it broke apart, Ghost King's sect would only have one outcome, which was to be instantly destroyed by other forces. Regarding this, as an old fox, Ao Tian couldn't not know. Since that was the case, why was Ao Tian still doing this? As if he could guess what Longao was thinking, Ao Tian sighed deeply and said, Longao, in your opinion, am I someone who would give up everything for power? Even my own daughter? Longao didn't reply, which could be considered as tacit agreement. Because from all the things that had happened in the past, Aotian was someone who would give up everything for power. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't have been able to see little Shue's mother for the rest of my life. Somewhat surprised, Longao seemed to have guessed something. It seemed he still didn't understand Aotian's character. But in the end, let alone himself, even Aoshue didn't necessarily understand her father. I want to ask, what is Aoshue's race? Longao, remember this. You absolutely can't leak this matter. Otherwise, not only you, but even little Shue will be in trouble. Nodding, seeing Aotian's grave expression, Longao also gravely replied, I know what to do. P.S. For some reason, the update was late. I won't look for excuses. Everyone supports me. Chapter 514. It's been many years, but it's still vivid in my mind. Longao seemed to be very anxious, but he still managed to hold it in. Longao, Little Snow and her mother are actually a branch of the Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clan? Longao was shocked to hear Aotian's words. He knew better than anyone what the Phoenix clan represented. The Phoenix clan, Qilin clan, and Giant Dragon clan were the strongest existences in the world. Longao never thought that Aoshue would be a member of the Phoenix clan. Longao, you don't have to be shocked. Little Snow and her mother only have half of the Phoenix bloodline. Therefore, unless Little Snow is reborn, she won't become a true Phoenix. Longao heaved a sigh of relief, but even so, he was still very curious. Uncle Ao, there's something I don't understand. Since Little Snow and her mother belong to the Phoenix clan, why would the Phoenix clan want to deal with you? Regarding this point, Longao could not figure it out very well. Aotian sighed again and said helplessly, If it were an ordinary person, the Phoenix clan wouldn't care at all. However, Little Snow's mother, who is Little Snow's grandmother, is a human, and her grandfather is the Phoenix clan's clan leader. Before Longao could speak, Aotian continued. The Phoenix clan feels that Little Snow's grandmother has corrupted the Phoenix clan. Not only did they imprison Little Snow's mother and grandmother, but they also pledged their allegiance to Little Snow's grandfather. So that's the case. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't shocked. Longao already understood the general situation. In the end, Little Snow was the Phoenix clan's clan leader's granddaughter. The Phoenix clan felt that Little Snow's grandmother, mother, and Little Snow had shamed the Phoenix clan, so they wanted to capture them. Since the Phoenix clan wants to deal with you, could it be? The Phoenix clan won't kill me. No matter what, Little Snow and Little Snow's mother have the Phoenix royal bloodline in their veins. Once they are reborn and reach the Nine Changes realm, they will be invincible. Uncle Ao, do you mean that once Aoshue is found out by the Phoenix clan, she will definitely be captured and brought back to the Phoenix clan? That's right. All these years, I've been hiding it very well. But now I've never thought that Little Snow's fainting would become more and more frequent. If it were to happen again, even the Phoenix clan's patriarch would not be able to do anything. Uncle Ao, what do you mean? Longao, since things have already reached this point, I won't hide it any longer. Little Snow possesses the Phoenix bloodline, but it's not a pure Phoenix bloodline. Because of the Imperial bloodline, Little Snow will faint 9 times. Once she faints for the 9th time, Little Snow will also become a phoenix. Although Aotian didn't finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. Longao wasn't a fool, so he naturally understood. His expression became extremely solemn as he asked, How many times has it been? The 8th time. The 8th time? In other words, there were only 2 more times before Aoshue would leave this world. Longao asked very gravely, Uncle Ao, how can we save Little Snow? There's only one way, and that is to go to the Phoenix clan and enter the Phoenix Ancestral Hall for a baptism. That way, not only can Little Snow resolve the crisis, she can even awaken her true Imperial bloodline. But at that time, Little Snow will forget everything, including you, me, and everything that happened in the past. Hearing that, Longao's expression became extremely gloomy. He had never imagined that things would develop like this. Was he not going to let Aoshue return to the Phoenix clan? Longao knew very well that between life and memories, both he and Ao Tian would choose Aoshue's life. Longao, I know you're very reluctant to part with her. I'm the same as you. Back then, if it weren't for Little Snow's mother fainting 8 times, I wouldn't have sent Aoshue back. Sai, your situation is exactly the same as mine back then. Uncle Ao, how do I contact the Phoenix clan? Longao didn't even think about it. No matter what happened, Aoshue's life was the most important thing. So Longao had already decided to send Aoshue back to the Phoenix clan first. According to Ao Tian, Little Snow had already fainted 8 times. Once she fainted 9 times, even if she entered the Phoenix Ancestral Hall for a baptism, it would be useless. It was precisely because of this that Longao decided to send Aoshue back to the Phoenix clan. Even if Aoshue didn't recognize him in the future, it was fine as long as Aoshue was safe. He deeply sighed. Only at that moment did Longao truly experience the taste of powerlessness. No matter if it was Yuyin or Ao Shui, the 2 women that he loved in his entire life, he was powerless to do anything. One had been taken away by a mysterious old woman, and he was powerless. Aoshue had fainted 8 times, and he was also powerless. There was only one reason for all of this, and that was strength. In the end, his strength was still too low. If he was a god, none of this would be a problem. Have you thought it through? Aoshue's life is more important than anything. Ao Tian's face was full of praise. He nodded and said, It's very simple. Before Little Snow's mother left, she gave me a phoenix feather. As long as I light it, the experts of the Phoenix clan will naturally come. Ao Tian nodded. At this time, Ao Tian took out a golden feather from his bosom and gave it to Longao. He said, I'll leave this matter to you. I hope you don't let Ao Shui know. Otherwise, according to Ao Shui's personality, even if she dies, she won't leave you. Understood. Longao stood up and did not continue talking nonsense. He turned around and left. Inside the room. Quietly sitting by the bed, Longao stared blankly at the unconscious Aoshue. He didn't say anything and just quietly looked at her. Everyone in the Long family was very serious because everyone knew what had happened. Although Longao didn't tell everyone about the Phoenix clan, many people knew that Aoshue was going to leave the Long family. As for where she was going, no one knew what had happened. Everyone in the Long family, including Long Haosher, Long Yi, and Mu Lin, didn't dare to take a step into the room. Because with Longao's growth, Longao had become a godlike existence in the Long family. Even Long Haosher's status couldn't be compared to Longao. Father, what should we do now? Waving his hand, Long Haosher's expression was also very serious. He helplessly sighed and said, We don't know what happened. Ao won't say anything. Now only one person can go in and persuade him. Everyone naturally knew who Long Haosher was referring to. Everyone looked at Mu Lin. Chapter 5:15. No matter what, Mu Lin was Long Ao's mother. Mu Lin nodded and gently pushed open the door and walked in. Mother! With Long Ao's strength, of course he knew who had walked in. No matter how far Long Ao had reached, no matter how strong Long Ao was, he was still a child less than 20 years old, especially in front of his mother. Ao, what exactly happened? Tell your mother. She gently walked to Long Ao's side and sat by the bedside. She quietly looked at her daughter-in-law who was lying on the bed. Her tears fell down, but Mu Lin did not dare to cry. Because she knew that Long Ao was 10,000 times sadder than anyone else. Mother, I will send Aoshue away from the family later. Where to? A very powerful place. Aoshue won't be coming back for a while. Long Ao didn't dare to tell his mother the truth because he was afraid that she would be sad. According to Ao Tian, once Aoshua was sent back to the Phoenix clan and awakened the true bloodline of the Phoenix royal family, her memories would all disappear and she would forget about everyone. There was nothing he could do. Longao's heart was filled with reluctance, but he had no choice but to do so because Ao Shui had already fainted 8 times. As long as she fainted for the 9th time, it would be very difficult for even a deity to save Ao Shui's life. Mu Lin didn't continue asking because she knew that Ao would tell her even if she didn't ask. Ao, don't be too stubborn. Mother, I understand. The two of them didn't speak. They were quiet. The next morning, Long Ao quietly carried Aoshua's body and left. In a barren mountain far away from the Long family, Long Ao placed Aoshua's body on the ground. Without any hesitation, he took out the so-called phoenix feather, lit it, and placed it beside Aoshua. After everything was done, Long Ao didn't even look at Aoshua. He was afraid that if he looked at Aoshua too much, he wouldn't be able to cut off the reluctance in his heart. Not long after Long Ao left, the phoenix feathers were burned to ashes. At this time, a terrifying power came from the sky. Space was torn open and an old woman walked out. She looked around and didn't see anyone else. When she saw the Aoshua lying on the ground, her expression changed. Without saying another word, the old woman picked up the Aoshua and turned to leave. The hole that was torn closed again, as if nothing had happened. Long Ao had witnessed the scene just now. He knew very well that the old woman who had just appeared was a powerhouse from the Phoenix clan. However, what surprised Long Ao was that a powerhouse from the Phoenix clan could transform into a human. Aoshua, one day, I'll go to the Phoenix clan and personally bring you back. Long Ao didn't continue to be sad about this matter. No matter what, Aoshua's life was saved. As for the future, he would personally go to the Phoenix clan. No one would be able to stop him. After returning to the Long Ao family, Long Ao had returned to normal. However, it was because of this that everyone was even more worried. They all thought that Long Ao had been provoked. Ao, are you all right? Shaking his head, Long Ao smiled and said, I'm fine. Aoshua only had a small problem. I'll definitely find her in the future. All right, grandfather, I have something very important to tell you. But you have to promise me that no matter who it is, you can't tell them. Seeing his grandson speak so seriously, Long Haoshe was very surprised. He said, Don't you know your grandfather's personality? Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Long Ao originally didn't want to tell his grandfather. However, things had changed. It was because of this that Long Ao decided to tell his grandfather about the old ancestors' matter. Grandfather, the inheritance you gave Big Brother back then wasn't the old ancestors' inheritance. Impossible. Ao, this matter is very important. Don't talk nonsense. Hearing his grandson say such words, Long Haoshe was shocked. What kind of joke was this? How could the old ancestors' inheritance be fake? The old ancestors' inheritance had been passed down from generation to generation. This time, if it wasn't for Ao, Long Haoshe believed that he wouldn't have taken out the old ancestors' inheritance. Grandfather, listen to me. Since things had already reached this point, Long Ao told his grandfather about the old ancestors' matter in full detail. After hearing this, Long Haoshe was so shocked that he couldn't even speak. This was because he had never imagined that the old ancestor of his family, Long Batian, was actually not a so-called great emperor, but a true divine expert. In other words, he was one of the experts who stood at the peak of the martial Tao. Ao, grandfather wants to ask you for a favor. Let's go. There was no need for his grandfather to say anything. Long Ao already knew what his grandfather wanted to do. He brought Long Haoshe to the back of the mountain and released his aura to sense the old ancestor's divine Tao aura. Just as expected. In a short while, Long Ao had successfully sensed the old ancestor's aura. Before Long Haoshe could react, the two of them were already enveloped by the divine Tao aura and disappeared on the spot. In the cave. Ao, didn't I say that you can't tell anyone about me? Looking at the illusory figure in front of him, there was no need for Long Ao to say anything. Longao naturally knew who the illusory figure was. He immediately knelt on the ground and said emotionally, "This unfilial disciple, Longao, greets the old ancestor. Rise." As the true master of Longao Peak, Long Batian naturally knew who Longao was. He seemed a little dissatisfied and said unhappily, "The family has been in your hands for generations. From a rank 3 Long family to a rank 9 Long family now. You really are worthy of the ancestors of the family." Longao did not dare to stand up. Although he was the most senior person in the Long family, in front of Long Batian, Longao was nothing more than a child. He did not even have the courage to refute. "Old ancestor is right. It's this unfilial disciple's fault for not developing the Long family properly." At this moment, Longao finally knew that his family was not a rank 9 Long family, but a rank 3 Long family. However, after the old ancestor's death, the family was suppressed and became worse with each generation. From a rank 3 Long family, it directly fell to a rank 9 Long family. Rise. This matter is not entirely your fault. Long family is too shameless. Originally a family, but you can't allow the side branches to develop. If this continues, the Long family will be swallowed up by other forces sooner or later. Longao and his wife's grandfather was Longao, and in Longao's heart, he was definitely closer to his grandfather than Long Batian. No matter what, Long Batian was just an old ancestor. Who knew how many generations separated them? Longao was still excited at this moment because he had never imagined that he would be able to meet the old ancestor. The legendary number 1 expert of the family and also one of the current Supreme Tao warriors. If he did not fall, he really did not know how prosperous the family would be. Chapter 516. Aor, why did you bring your grandfather here? Longao smiled and said, Ancestor, I have a presumptuous request that I hope you can agree to. You want to pass on the divine Tao to your grandfather? Nodding his head, Longao also did not have the slightest trace of politeness and said, Old ancestor, since things have already come to this, I will also speak the truth. Longao didn't dare to interrupt. No matter what, the illusory figure in front of him was the ancestor of the clan. Not to mention him, even his late father and grandfather didn't dare to speak loudly in front of the ancestor. Ancestor, with grandfather's strength and the injuries he suffered back then, I believe he will die in less than 10 years. At this point, Longhao's body suddenly trembled and he sighed deeply because what Aor said was true. He would die in less than 10 years. Because of this, I hope you can pass on the divine Tao to grandfather. Disciple Longao will be eternally grateful. Aor. Looking at Aor beside him, Longao was so emotional that he couldn't speak. With such a grandson, he could die without regrets. Long Batian didn't agree nor disagree. Looking at the two not far away, he suddenly asked, Aor, I want to ask you, if you have the chance to join a Long family in the future and the Long family is willing to focus on you, what will you do? Longao didn't know what the ancestor meant. However, Longao had already made up his mind. He said honestly, Ancestor, I have some understanding of the Long family. To be honest, I don't like the Long family, so no matter when, I will not join a Long family. And then? I will lead the clan into the Dragon Valley, chase away the Long family, and make the clan the new Long family. Hearing this, Longao was shocked. Although he had always trusted his grandson, would he dare to believe that the clan would move into the Dragon Valley, chase away the Long family, and make the clan the new Long family? Longao didn't, but Long Batian did. Ha ha, good, good, good. Long Batian said good 3 times in a row. His face was full of praise. He said, Aor, I believe you. Let me ask again. Has the little guy obtained the divine dragon pearl? Little guy? Who was this little guy? Longao was very curious. He did not know what kind of riddle the old ancestor and Ao were playing. He did not know who this little guy was. However, Longao still didn't dare to ask. Longao was not the slightest bit surprised when the old ancestor mentioned the little fellow. He nodded and did not hide anything. He said, "Old ancestor, you are right. The little fellow has already obtained the divine dragon pearl. In the future, he will definitely become the dragon god of the dragon clan." Long Batian was very excited. He smiled and said, "I can't believe it. The most precious treasure of the dragon clan has been lost for so many years, but Aoer, you got it." If the dragon clan knows about this, I wonder what will happen. Longao swallowed his saliva fiercely. He could imagine what the dragon clan would do if the matter of the little guy obtaining the divine dragon pearl was known by the dragon clan. What a joke! The divine dragon pearl was the most precious treasure of the dragon clan. It was also the symbol of the dragon god's identity. According to the old ancestor, the divine dragon pearl had been lost for many years. He believed that the dragon clan must be looking for it. "Aoer, can you take out the divine dragon pearl and let me see?" Nodding, Longao did not guard against the old ancestor. He took out the divine dragon pearl from the little guy's hand and handed it to the old ancestor. "Yes, this is the divine dragon pearl of the dragon clan. Once the little guy's strength increases and he refines the divine dragon pearl, he will become the new dragon god." Hearing this, although he already knew, Longao couldn't help but feel happy. "Aoer, remember, no matter when, you cannot reveal the divine dragon pearl. Unless the little guy has truly merged with the divine dragon pearl and become the new dragon god, do you understand?" "Ancestor, I will remember." How could Longao not know about the old ancestor's worries? No matter what, the divine dragon pearl was the most precious treasure of the dragon clan. The dragon clan had been looking for it for so many years. They must be going crazy. But one must know that as long as one obtained the divine dragon pearl, their strength would definitely increase greatly. If the dragon clan obtained it and merged with it, they would become the new dragon god. Would the dragon clan allow such a thing to happen? After receiving the divine dragon pearl from the old ancestor, Longao still asked, "Old ancestor, what do you think?" "I can agree, but I can't inherit it now. At most 3 months, your grandfather can officially accept the inheritance. If there are no accidents, 3 years later there will be another divine path warrior in the clan." "Thank you, old ancestor." If it wasn't for Longao's sharp eyes and quick hands, Longao would have knelt down again. Longao was simply excited to the extreme because he already knew what it meant to be a divine path warrior. As the pinnacle existence in the world, Longao really didn't think that he would one day become a divine path warrior. "Thank you, old ancestor." "Aoer, you really don't want to think about it. If you can accept the inheritance, I can guarantee that you can break through the nihility god realm and reach the divine focus realm." "I don't need it." Without even thinking about it, Longao directly refused, because no matter what the reason was, he couldn't inherit the divine path inheritance. On one side was his dream to reach the peak of martial Tao, and on the other side was his grandfather. He was determined not to let anything happen to his grandfather. "Old ancestor, I want to rely on my own cultivation and hard work to reach the divine path. Not only the nihility god realm or the divine focus realm, I want to reach the heavenly god realm, so I won't accept any inheritance." Being rejected by his own junior, Long Batian didn't feel angry at all. Instead, he praised even more. "Well said, with your talent and potential, your future achievement will definitely not be limited to the nihility god realm or the divine focus realm. Peak heavenly god realm. In a battle between divine path warriors of the same level, breaking through the divine path on your own is far better than inheriting the divine path." Without waiting for Longao to speak, Long Batian continued, "Aoer, you leave first, I will inform you after you strip off the divine path." "Thank you, old ancestor, I will leave first." "Take care, old ancestor." Longao wasn't as relaxed as Longao, he was especially reserved. Still, Longao was excited to see the old ancestor. it was impossible for him to be relaxed. Looking at the two figures that had already disappeared, Long Batian also seemed to be very excited. He muttered to himself, "I really didn't expect that such a peerless genius would appear in the family. Long family, just you wait, I, Long Batian, will one day return to the Dragon Clan. I will take back twice what I lost." After returning to the family, Long Haosher couldn't calm down for a long time. He was still immersed in the excitement of seeing the old ancestor, causing everyone to be depressed. They didn't know what had happened. Chapter 517. Aoer, tell me, how did you find the old ancestor? Long Ao could understand his grandfather's excitement. In the family, only his grandfather and his brother knew about the old ancestor. Now that his grandfather could see the legendary old ancestor with his own eyes, how could he not be excited? Not to mention his grandfather, even he himself was excited when he saw the old ancestor for the first time. Long Ao did not hide anything in the slightest and recounted the events that happened some time ago in full detail. After hearing that, Long Haosher also sighed endlessly because Long Ao said it very easily. However, Long Haosher knew how dangerous the things that happened before were. It was hard to imagine what would happen if domineering was devoured by the Divine Spirit. When the Divine Spirit took over domineering's body, the first person it would deal with was undoubtedly his grandson. Next, it would deal with the family. Fortunately, the old ancestor took action personally, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Grandfather, listen to me. You will inherit the Divine Tao inheritance in 3 months. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you and the family. You must not miss it. Long Haosher nodded his head. How could he not know about his grandson's good intentions? He was not a fool. When he saw the old ancestor's intention was clear. The Divine Tao inheritance was left for Aoer. Even if Aoer did not want to inherit the Divine Tao inheritance, it would not be his turn. Long Haosher knew that the old ancestor would definitely choose a suitable person to inherit the Divine Tao inheritance. Everything was because of Aoer. Long Haosher was well aware of his own body. He was old and suffered injuries a few years ago. At most, he would not live for more than 10 years. But now, the situation was completely reversed. As long as he could inherit the Divine Tao inheritance, not to mention 10 years, even 100 years or 1,000 years would not be a problem. This was the Divine Tao. Aoer, don't worry. Grandfather knows what to do. Grandfather, I am going to participate in the battle between the 4 major forces. So from now on, if there is nothing else, the family should not go out. As for Long Ao's peak, with the old ancestor there, I believe no one will dare to come. Aoer, have you decided? I've decided. Aoer, I originally didn't want to ask too much about this matter, but the 4 big powers have already started a chaotic battle. Why do you still want to interfere? If they fight until both sides are injured, you can completely sit back and reap the benefits. Long Ao was very clear about his grandfather's intentions. Grandpa, the chaotic battle between the 4 forces is only on the surface. It won't hurt our foundation. If this continues, our dragon sect will be in a passive position. Let's not talk about other things first. I want to chase all 4 forces out of Tianzhou. From today onwards, Tianzhou will only belong to our dragon sect. No matter who it is, as long as they dare to take a step in, we will kill them without mercy. If Aoer had said this to him a year ago, Long Haosher would definitely not have believed him. But now, with the rapid rise of Aoer, there were times when Long Haosher found himself getting further and further away from his grandson, to the point where he could not see clearly. However, there was one thing. No matter what, Long Haosher had confidence in his grandson. Aoer, do you need help from the clan? There's no need for that. The clan only needs to do one thing well, which is to increase its strength and develop its influence. I got it. Long Ao did not leave the clan immediately. Instead, he accompanied Mu Lin for 3 days. This time, Aoshua's incident was a huge blow to Longao's mother, because his mother truly treated Aoshua as her daughter-in-law. Aoshua's incident was considered to have come to an end. Only Longao's heart was filled with helplessness and sadness. No one knew. Everyone could only see Longao's appearance, but they could not see what was going on in Longao's heart. Longao returned to the dragon sect and immediately found the Ghost King, Snake Emperor, Xia Jun, Ouyang Fei, and the others to discuss how to deal with the 4 big powers. Longao only had one goal, which was to chase all 4 forces out of Tianzhou. From then on, no one would be allowed to take a step in Tianzhou. As soon as Longao returned to the dragon sect, he announced this to the 9 states. Everyone who received the news burst into laughter. They all wondered if the dragon sect had lost their minds. Who did they think they were to speak to the 4 big powers in such a tone? In everyone's opinion, as long as the 4 big powers were willing, they could destroy the dragon sect in a matter of minutes. However, the dragon sect had just announced to the 9 states that the imperial city's people had all left Tianzhou. The alliance between the imperial city and the dragon sect was something that everyone knew. Therefore, it was reasonable for the imperial city to withdraw from the Sky region. As for the other 3 forces, the rank 3 Long family, the Nether Mansion, and the Ethereal Palace, they treated the dragon sect as a fart and continued to do whatever they wanted. They didn't even care about the dragon sect. Dragon Sect Great Hall. After taking a glance, Longao opened his mouth and said, "I believe everyone already understands what I mean. It's very simple. I want everyone from the 3 big forces to be chased out of the Tianzhou within 3 days. Those who refuse to comply will be killed without mercy." Hearing the master's words, everyone's expression turned bitter. No matter what, the other party was the 3 big powers. Not to mention dealing with the 3 big powers at the same time, it would be very difficult to deal with them one-on-one. The Snake Emperor stood up and said helplessly, "Master, if we fought with all our might before, we might be able to stop the 3 big powers. But now, it's very difficult for us to fight them out." Nodding, Longao said, "I know you're worried, but I've made up my mind. This time, I'll fight personally." Hearing that the master was going to fight personally, everyone was shocked. However, ever since the 4 big powers started fighting, the master did not take the initiative to attack. He did not even show his face. Everyone thought that the master had lost his confidence, and did not want to fight with the 4 big powers at all. But now, if the master wanted to fight, then he would use such a ruthless move. Not only did he announce it to the 9 states, but he was also going to fight personally. Everyone knew the master's personality very well. Because of this, no one tried to stop him. The Snake Emperor said, "Master, since you've decided to fight with the 3 big powers and chase them out of Tianzhou, I hope to be the vanguard. I only need the corpse slave army." Shameless. Despicable. Shameless. Hearing the Snake Emperor's words, everyone cursed in their hearts. Because everyone knew clearly that the dragon sect's strongest force was the corpse slave army. Just the undying body alone was enough for one person to fight against 100. Many people wanted to be the vanguard because with the help of the corpse demon army, it was almost impossible to be defeated. Such a rare opportunity had been snatched by the Snake Emperor. Everyone was fiercely cursing each other in their hearts, and also fiercely cursing themselves. They all blamed themselves for being too slow. Chapter 5:18. How could Longao not know what the Snake Emperor was thinking? He smiled helplessly in his heart. The Snake Emperor was too impatient. He wanted to prove himself in front of Ethereal Palace. Longao knew that it wasn't good for the Snake Emperor to continue like this, but he still nodded and agreed. "The Snake Emperor will be the vanguard. Remember, don't act recklessly." "I know, Master. Look at the good news I brought you." Seeing the Snake Emperor turn and leave, Everyone's expression turned ugly. If it was any other time, no one would say anything. But now, the Ghost King stood up and said, "Master, this is absolutely inappropriate." "Uncle Ao, what do you mean?" "Master, the Snake Emperor has begun to distort himself in order to show off. I'm worried that something will happen to him as the vanguard to deal with the three great forces." Ever since Aoshua's secret was revealed, Longao had changed completely. Longao was very pleased with this. Longao certainly knew what everyone was worried about. But things had already come to this point. Could he stop the Snake Emperor? No matter what, the Snake Emperor was Sheiji's brother. As the saying goes, even if you don't look at the monk, you have to look at the Buddha. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this issue. He thought for a moment and said, "From now on, the sect will enter a state of battle. No one can be careless." Seeing that the master had made up his mind, everyone sighed deeply. No one said anything. Just like this, the Snake Emperor led hundreds of spirit beast corpse slaves and began to attack the three great forces. Longao was afraid that the Snake Emperor would fail. So, the corpse slave army he gave the Snake Emperor were all World Emperor and World King level spirit beast corpse slaves. Just thinking about it made one's hair stand on end. If it was a simple corpse slave army, the three great forces wouldn't have to be afraid. But the problem now was that the Dragon Sect's corpse slave army was immortal. It could fight against 100 by itself. Just like this, the Snake Emperor led the corpse slave army and gradually drove the three great forces out of Tianzhou. According to Longao's previous orders, once the Snake Emperor chased the three forces out of Tianzhou, he would immediately withdraw to the sect. From then on, the Dragon Sect would only need to guard Tianzhou, then watch the fire from the other side of the river, and finally reap the benefits. But what was the result? The Snake Emperor didn't care about Longao's orders at all. He secretly led the corpse demon army and killed his way out. This way, even if something happened to the Snake Emperor, the Dragon Sect wouldn't be able to help. "Master, what should we do now?" Longao's face did not look too good either, because he never would have thought that the Snake Emperor would disobey orders and lead the corpse slave army out of Tianzhou. Because of this, the house was in a very passive position. "How is the Snake Emperor now?" "Master, this time, the Snake Emperor led the corpse demon army to chase after the three forces and left Tianzhou. He accidentally fell into the three forces trap and is now trapped in Bailing Mountain." As expected, Longao cursed in his heart. The Snake Emperor had been too eager to show off. In the end, he had fallen into the trap of the three great forces. His fate was unknown. Longao wasn't worried about the corpse demon army. After all, the corpse demon army was immortal. It was almost impossible for the three great forces to destroy the corpse demon army. Only the Snake Emperor was troublesome. Sheiji's face didn't look too good either. She was completely helpless against her brother. Longao had finally given her brother a chance. Now, before he could even succeed, his fate was unknown. No one dared to speak as they quietly waited for the master's decision. "Ignore it? Or save it? I'll deal with this personally." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. However, before they could react, Longao stood up and left. Everyone looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Sheiji especially sighed deeply in her heart and walked towards the back of the mountain. Longao was preparing to lead the corpse demon army to rescue the Snake Emperor. At this moment, Sheiji walked over slowly with guilt and helplessness written all over her face. Before Sheiji could speak, Longao spoke first. "There's no need to say more. Whether it's for public or private reasons, I have to save the Snake Emperor. However, after this, the Snake Emperor won't have another chance. I hope you can understand." "I understand. My brother was too eager to prove himself to the ethereal palace. This time, he has implicated the sect. I'll apologize to the sect on behalf of my brother." Longao was actually a little unhappy. This was because 80% of the reason why he had given the authority to the Snake Emperor was because of Dugabai and Sheiji. Otherwise, not only would he not have given the authority to the Snake Emperor, he might not even have taken the Snake Emperor in. This was what it meant to be unsatisfied. You couldn't blame others. Sheiji, Brother Dugu won't be able to return for a while. If you miss him, why don't you go to the city of Sin? You'll have company. Sheiji wasn't a fool. Of course, she understood what Longao meant. I'll go there later. Longao didn't say any more nonsense. He immediately got up and headed to Bailing Mountain. Originally, he wanted to bring the rest of the corpse slave army. However, after some thought, Longao ultimately chose to give up. The reason was simple. If he brought the corpse slave army with him, wouldn't the sect be in danger when the three major forces lured him away? Thinking of this, Longao was prepared to head there alone. With the sect's current strength, it was impossible for them to be a match for the three major forces. Therefore, no matter who he brought along, it would be like a moth to a flame. Bailing Mountain. It was a strange sight in the Huan state. It was surrounded by mountains and the terrain was dangerous. The Snake Emperor led the corpse slave army and chased after the Ethereal Palace's army. He thought that he was invincible. In his arrogance, he was lured into Bailing Mountain by the Ethereal Palace and was trapped by the three major forces. The Snake Emperor thought that he could force his way out with the corpse slave army. But in the end, he had to admit that the foundation and strength of the three major forces were there. Even if the corpse slave army was immortal, it would be difficult for them to break out. Moreover, if this situation continued, the Snake Emperor and the corpse slave army would definitely die. After being trapped for 3 days, the Snake Emperor was no longer as high-spirited as before. Bailing Mountain. Snake Emperor, as the palace master of the Ethereal Palace, you betrayed us and helped the dragon sect to deceive your master. Today, I will kill you for the sake of justice. If you know what's good for you, come out and accept your death. The World Emperor of the Ethereal Palace was furious. However, he was also extremely happy. Not everyone could kill the former palace master of the Ethereal Palace with their own hands. Humph, the Ethereal Palace was heartless to me first. Don't blame me for being unjust. Today, blame me for being reckless. Although I die, I have no regrets. I only hate that I can't kill you trash with my own hands. Ha ha, with just you. What a traitorous trash. Snake Emperor, I will kill you with my own hands later. I will strip you naked and let the world see the consequences of being a traitor. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Hearing this, the Snake Emperor's face was extremely cold. P.S. Brothers, there are only 3 disciples left in the top 10 of the fan list. Work hard and surpass them to become deacons. Little Nyan is very grateful. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.